In my second year of high school, the school bully gave me a love letter just to spite his unattainable crush, the campus belle. I thought his feelings were genuine. I threw caution to the wind and ran to him, painstakingly tutored him, dreaming of getting into the same university. Yet, at a class reunion years later, drunk and with red-rimmed eyes, he snapped at the campus belle, "You were the one who was mad at me back then. You said to give it to her, so I did." Later, when a fire broke out in the mall we were in, he didn't even glance my way, scooping her up and fleeing for the exit. In this new life, seeing that love letter again and facing the teasing from my classmates, I just casually handed it to the school beauty sitting next to me and said, "Isn't Starlight you? Why are you making fun of me?" 1. The evening after the rain was muggy and hot, with vast swathes of orange-red clouds glowing outside the window. Evening self-study hadn't started yet, and the hallway outside the classroom was buzzing with noise. I sat at my desk, appearing to read quietly, but my palms were clenched tight. It felt like a bizarre dream, yet I could still sense that suffocating feeling of being trapped in a fire. Just like in my previous life, Wei Huai's buddy stood in the doorway with his arm slung over a friend's shoulder, calling out loudly, "Who's little star in this class?" Someone asked me to bring her something. In their hands were a love letter, a bouquet of baby's breath, and a cup of bubble tea. Simple, heartfelt tokens of affection. If I hadn't been dragged into this mess, I would have offered my blessings too. Deskmate Song Xian kept doodling over the math problem in her notebook. She was so pretty, even her angry expression was charming and adorable. No wonder so many students on the school forum called her the campus belle. The jeering in the classroom grew louder and louder. Finally, just like in her past life, she turned to me and snapped, "Xing Xing is calling you. Aren't you going to answer her?" Meeting her mocking gaze, I felt no shyness or embarrassment this time, only a surge of pure anger. They were on the verge of getting together, but their petty squabble ended up dragging me into it, and like a fool, I actually believed that confession was real. In the end, from start to finish, I was just a clown for their amusement. If the whole thing had ended with tonight's farce, I wouldn't have despised them so much. What happened next was this: Wei Huai, to make her jealous, just went along with it and started dating me. Ever since the confession, he would come to my desk to find me every single day. On a sweltering afternoon when the power went out, he would fan me from behind with a hand fan. I'd shoot him a glare. Unfazed, he met my gaze and said, "Classmate, you, don't I even have the right to fan myself? The wind just decided to blow your way." Sometimes when I forgot to eat dinner, he'd take it upon himself to bring a meal to the classroom. Back then, I was too shy. I just said, "I won't agree to that. You agreeing to go out with me and me asking you to eat on time are two completely separate things. If you don't eat, I'll just sit right here until you do." He, who usually never paid attention in class, would even bring practice problems to ask me. The boy's eyes looked utterly sincere as he said, "You. Even though there's a big gap between us right now, I'll work hard to get into the same university as you. You'll say yes to me one day." For some reason, at that age, we seemed so much more easily moved, and also more prone to doing foolish things. I truly believed there was someone who liked me enough to change for me, to be with him. I spent the last year or so entirely on him, trying every way I could to help him improve his grades. He was fully aware of my shyness and fluster back then, the occasional moments of being moved, all those little feelings I had, yet he just stood by and watched me fall for him, then shamelessly used me to stir up another girl's possessiveness towards him. He used me to prove that she cared about him, that she liked him. She used me to prove that he liked her so much, he'd even hire a clown like me just to get a rise out of her. Their whole emotional tug-of-war was played out by trampling all over a living, breathing person like me. Thinking of all this, I looked at Song Xian and said mockingly, "I've never had a nickname like Little Star. My name is Yu Xian." Song Xian and a few of her close friends have a habit of giving each other nicknames. Girls their age often come up with cute monikers based on homophones. At the time, with so many people egging us on and both parties involved feigning ignorance, I didn't catch on right away. I didn't speak very loudly, but my voice was just enough for the people gathered around us to hear. Gradually, the conversation steered toward her. "Hey, Little Star, go get your love letter. Since when do you use your deskmate as a human shield?" A classmate teased her directly. In a fit of anger, she slammed her workbook down, blurting out without thinking. She added, "It's not from me. Anyway, who would even like someone like him?" These words happened to be overheard by Wei Huai, who was just walking into the classroom with a basketball. He looked even more upset than he had in our previous life. Putting down the basketball, he picked up the love letter and walked over to me, saying, "Classmate Yu Xian, would you be with me?" The jeering from the class grew even louder. This time, things were starting to play out differently compared to the last life. In my past life, it was his friend who threw the love letter onto my desk. Several more days passed, and Song Xian still ignored him. To make her jealous, he actually started pursuing me, his pawn. So the whole incident didn't turn into a huge embarrassment. In fact, aside from Wei Huai's buddies and the two people directly involved, no one knew that love letter was originally meant for Song Xian. Moreover, the love letter didn't start with a formal salutation, it just had a little smiley face drawn in pencil, with 2 stars for eyes. I thought he wrote it that way on purpose to bridge the distance between us, not realizing that from the very beginning. I was never the little star he spoke of, too. No, I won't, I said calmly, looking into his bright eyes. That's alright, I'll keep pursuing you until you agree. He didn't seem too bothered by it, putting on an act as if he were genuinely smitten and utterly confident of success. Beside her, Song Xian's tears had already smudged the exercises on the desk. Just then, their homeroom teacher, Ms. Song, arrived. She surveyed the noisy classroom, noticed the baby's breath on the desk, and rapped on the lectern, asking, "What's going on here?" The classroom fell silent instantly. Normally, the homeroom teacher wouldn't be here for at least another half hour, so why did she show up early this time? I lured her here. This afternoon, I deliberately asked her a really difficult math question when I knew she was busy. She had promised me she'd come to the classroom early before evening self-study to help me with some problems. I had timed it perfectly to make sure she would walk right into that whole scene. I was determined to blow this whole thing wide open. I wanted to make a spectacle of them, to humiliate them both. In my past life, Wei Huai and I got together after the college entrance exams, but during our final year of high school, someone reported us for dating too early. The anonymous report was delivered to the principal's office. To make an example of us, we were hauled up onto the stage during the Monday assembly to read our confessions. I was mortified beyond belief. I felt like I'd lost all my dignity for the rest of my life, and it wasn't just the humiliation. The worst part was that my mother found out. She slapped me hard across the face and said I had no shame. Ever since my first year of high school, my mom kept drilling it into me not to get into a relationship too early. She said that studying was the only chance for a family like ours. I didn't know how to respond to her. The fallout from all this was that I spent the final stretch of my senior year trapped in a draining tug-of-war between home and school. I didn't perform my best on the college entrance exams. Meanwhile, Wei Huai, whom I'd been tutoring one-on-one for over a year, ended up exceeding all expectations. In the end, we really did get into the same university. When I received my acceptance letter, my homeroom teacher just looked at me with disappointment and asked, "Was it worth it?" To this day, I still remember that the only "I'm sorry" Wei Huai ever gave me was when he saw the slap mark on my face. But was that slap the only thing he owed me an apology for? After the college entrance exams, during all those years at university, he had countless chances to come clean and talk to me properly. Was my youth somehow less valuable? Am I not worthy of someone who genuinely loves me? 3. I was completely hung up on figuring out who the snitch was, and the whole class was on edge, fearing they might be next. It's not like this was an all-girls school. If someone wanted to report this kind of thing, they could always find a reason. We even planned to sneak into the principal's office to steal the anonymous letter and compare the handwriting. It was Wei Huai who stopped them at the time, saying, "Let it go. Everyone should focus on the college entrance exam." It was also during that period that he came to see me more frequently. His mood was unusually good. In fact, at the time, I just thought he had a positive mindset. Later, when I went to collect my admission letter, I passed by the principal's office and saw a few classmates cleaning inside. As if guided by some strange compulsion, I went over to help and, by sheer chance, found that anonymous letter tucked away in the corner. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was a perfect match for Song Xian's. I was utterly baffled at the time. I thought we were on decent terms, and I couldn't fathom why she would do such a thing. What did she possibly stand to gain by reporting me and humiliating me? I picked the letter out of the trash and showed it to Wei Huai, but he just tried to placate me, saying, "She probably just had a problem with you at the time, but it's been so long, there's no point in bringing it up again." I stayed silent. He pinched my cheek and said, "Who knew our classmate you could be so petty?" Petty. Ever since this happened, Mom has brought it up almost every single day. I live with this pressure and the judgmental stares of others every day, yet in his eyes, it's just some trivial matter. But people are always masters of self-deception. Back then, I convinced myself that he only said those things because it had been so long that pursuing the matter was pointless, but thinking about it now, When he saw that letter of complaint, was he remembering the shame of us being dragged up onto the stage, or was he worried that if everyone found out Song Xian was the one who reported it, it would cause trouble for her, just like how he was in such high spirits back then, treating everyone one after another? It wasn't to comfort me, it was just that I, his pawn, had finally served my purpose. He finally saw that the person he'd been pining for was starting to pay attention to him. I was so naive back then, it never even crossed my mind, after all, who in this world would treat both their own and other people's feelings as a joke? But looking back, there were actually quite a few red flags. After the reporting incident, Wei Huai started buying bubble tea for me often, always getting enough for everyone around, including my good deskmate, Song Xian, except, her cup usually ended up straight in the trash. I just thought she didn't like Wei Huai much. It never occurred to me that there could be another reason, so when it was time to choose seats again, I privately told her I wanted to sit with someone else. I thought we wouldn't be desk mates again, but then she just sat down next to me as if nothing had happened. Ironically, I even joked with a friend, saying, "Looks like my desk mate doesn't hate me, it's Wei Huai she can't stand." I even told Wei Huai about it, telling him to stop bullying other classmates in the future. Thinking back on it now, he must have been absolutely thrilled to hear that, right? Once again, I, the glorified errand boy, have proven just how much that girl he's obsessed with actually cares about him. The more I think about it, the sicker I feel. What did I ever do to deserve this? One relationship, and I managed to run into two absolute lunatics. Alright, fine, you want to play games, is that it? Let's see who gets the last laugh. 4. The homeroom teacher asked who the baby's breath on the desk was for. Song Xian looked up. Her eyes red, pointed at me, and whispered, "It's for Xin." I couldn't take it anymore. I deliberately raised my voice and said, "Are you done with the act? Who is it really for? Don't you know in your heart?" My words completely enraged Wei Huai. He glared at me with cold eyes. "Ha, so you're dropping the act now, are you?" I doubt he'd have the nerve to come crawling back to me after all this, to spare the three of us the embarrassment. The homeroom teacher took us to the office. Sitting in her chair, she looked at Wei Huai and said, "Well, what's going on?" Song Xian cried even harder. Her family was very strict, and she was terrified of her parents finding out about the puppy love, yet she knew perfectly well my family's situation was just like hers. Still, she wrote that letter of complaint. She watched as I was made a public example on the stage for the whole school to see, and she watched my mother rushing over in a panic. Standing in the office, Song Xian hung her head, tears falling in heavy drops onto the floor. Her hands nervously picked at her nails, while I watched it all with cold detachment, as if I were merely an outsider who had come to watch the show. My attitude seemed to infuriate Wei Huai even more, because he had always been confident. With his reasonably handsome face, winning over girls had always been effortless for him. He shot me a challenging look and said, "I'm the one who likes you, Xian. She has nothing to do with this." Hearing this, Song Xian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Unbelievable, the two of them can actually be this disgusting. They're not actually moved by their love story, are they? To protect you, I dragged an innocent person into this mess to share the blame with me. Now do you see how much I like you? Ha, I actually laughed out loud. Wei Huai glared at me again, and I rolled my eyes at him. I said bluntly, "Are you getting emotional over your own little act? Honestly, who likes who is none of my business, but at least have the guts to own up to it. Man, can you honestly swear that little star thing was meant for me? Did you even spell my name right, you illiterate student you Xian?" "No personal attacks," said the homeroom teacher, who looked like she was trying not to laugh, as if I'd listened to her. After living 2 lifetimes, to be brought down by these two idiots, I might as well just end it all right now. I put on a show of extreme anger, even squeezing out a few misunderstood tears. "Who's attacking anyone? Teacher, I'm just here trying to get an education. What did I ever do to them? If they did it, they should own up to it. You want me to take the fall for this? A love letter isn't something you just hand out randomly. The school is covered in cameras. They'll show who's been hanging out with whom. You can't just take someone's word for it with no proof. My parents are strict. I can have my mom come in and we can review the footage together. I haven't had any interaction with this classmate recently, I swear." The moment I mentioned involving parents, Song Xian panicked. Just as I expected, she burst into tears immediately. "Teacher, it was for me. But I'm not dating anyone, I swear, I was just scared." LMAO, Wei Huai is completely dumbfounded now. After all, he willingly took the fall, even framing me as part of his bullshit hero complex. But being forced to shoulder the blame just makes him look even more pathetic. 5. Wei Huai froze on the spot, glanced at Song Xian, then clenched his fists and said coldly, "Teacher, yes. It was me pestering Song Xian all on my own, please don't blame her," watching his whole act from the side. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. What was that look for just now? He turned his head and glared at me. "Teacher, he's being mean to me," I said, looking at the teacher with a pitiful expression. Wei Huai's gaze grew increasingly menacing. I paid it no mind and continued, "So, Wei Huai, did you just push the blame onto me to protect Song Xian, the girl you like?" Wei Huai remained silent, his eyes still hostile. "To be honest, teacher, we're just here to study." What would have happened today if I hadn't cleared my own name? I looked at Teacher Song, my eyes already reddening with hurt. Teacher Song reached out and put an arm around my shoulder, then turned to Wei Huai and the other one, saying, "Whatever is going on between you two, you shouldn't have dragged an innocent classmate into it. You owe Xian an apology, having lived two lives." I finally received a reluctant apology from the two of them. What happened next had nothing to do with me. And I left the office. I went back to the classroom. The very next day, both of their parents were called in. We never found out the exact details of how it was resolved, but Song Xian was finally no longer my deskmate. Her eyes have been terribly puffy these past few days. She must have been crying a lot. The funniest part was when our homeroom teacher brought it up during the class meeting, making all these veiled references. It's normal to have feelings at this age, but girls. Let me be real with you. When you're looking for a boyfriend after graduation, forget everything else for a second. Character is what matters most. Think about it. If he's willing to drag innocent people into his mess, do you really think he'll treat you any better? And for the boys, if the girl you like can just casually frame someone else, is she really worth your affection? Even though our homeroom teacher teaches math, his command of the Chinese language is quite impressive. After that round of thinly veiled criticism, Song Xian was practically in floods of tears, and Wei Huai had shot me more dirty looks than I could count. I rolled my eyes so hard they started to ache. 6. I never brought up what happened with my classmates, but after all the commotion that night, word got around, so the moment class was over, the two of them became the laughingstock of the whole class. "Wei Huai, if you're not the screenwriter for the next Qiangyao drama, I'm not watching. Did you get so moved by your own performance you almost died? What's with the waterworks? Weren't you the one who had to drag others into your own relationship drama? What, do you think your own love is that dirty too? Oh, I'm not just a crybaby. I can also point out my boyfriend to my deskmate. How terrifying, right?" Song Xian couldn't take it anymore and ran out of the room. Wei Huai strode right up to my desk, threw down the workbook I was doing, and said, "Will you just give it a rest?" For God's sake. He leaned over, hands braced on the desk, glaring down at me from above. I slapped him across the face, then drove the pen hard into the back of his hand before he could even react. "What, are you too scared to pick on someone else? Do I owe the two of you something?" I stared him straight in the eyes and shot back coldly, "Fine, you just wait." With those words, he turned and left. A few kind classmates, concerned that Wei Huai might cause trouble for me, volunteered to walk me home from then on. I was a day student. To take better care of me, my mother had rented an apartment near the school for us to live in a long time ago. It was already 9:30 p.m. when we finished evening self-study, so when Wei Huai made that threat, everyone was worried for me. I just smiled dismissively and said, "We're all classmates." I doubt Wei Huai would actually go that far. Humph. I'm more worried he won't show up. Besides, I'm curious to see just how low he's willing to stoop. A few days later, Wei Huai's lackey came to deliver a message. If I apologized to Song Xian, the matter would be considered settled. Otherwise, I'd have to face the consequences on my own. I deliberately provoked them, saying, "What consequences? I'm rather looking forward to them." To be honest, ever since getting this second chance at life, I've been carrying a knot of resentment in my chest. It wasn't just about being deceived, but also all the emotions, time, and energy I'd wasted on him over the years. Thoughts of revenge churned in my mind several times a day. Finally, on a Friday evening, I was walking home as usual. Then, at the mouth of the alley, I was stopped by Wei Huai's men. Song Xian stood beside him, cautiously pulling at his shoulder and saying, "Let it go, Wei Huai. I don't want you to get hurt again because of me." Wei Huai reached out and gently patted her hand, saying, "It's all right. I know what I'm doing." He stepped closer to me, one step at a time, cornering me against the wall. "You Xian," he said, "a young girl like you doesn't need to play so many games. I told you, we're all classmates here. Just apologize to Xiao Xingxing, and we can let this go." I looked up at him, taking in his thuggish appearance. As I carefully thought back on the years we spent together, all I felt was disgust. I was young and naive, putting him on a pedestal. In truth, He's always been this way, so full of himself. I mouthed the words at him, you asshole. In the darkness, he was indeed seething with rage. You son of a bitch. No sooner had the words left his mouth than his fist shot up, swinging straight for me. I closed my eyes and waited, almost hoping he would make a move. But things didn't go as I expected. In the end, his fist never came down on me. It just slammed into the wall beside us. He froze for a moment, a look of genuine hurt flashing in his eyes. The wail of police sirens was already piercing the air. His brothers and friends all scattered at the sound, yet a few were still caught on the spot. Wei Huai looked at the officer beside him, then back at me, and said, you did this on purpose. I ignored him and yelled, help me, officer. Since he didn't actually lay a hand on me in the end, and was still making a scene, insisting he was just trying to pursue me, there were no surveillance cameras in that area either. However, he and his buddies were caught red-handed harassing me like that, and they still ended up being detained at the police station for a few days to be taught a lesson. After the school found out about this, Wei Huai was also given disciplinary probation. 7. Back at school. I was actually hoping he'd keep up the good work, because I really wanted to see him get thrown in jail, but then he suddenly lost his nerve. He just kept calling me a scheming woman, saying he couldn't afford to mess with me, but he could certainly avoid me. He claimed I had deliberately set a trap to harm him, since palace intrigue dramas were all the rage back then. His whole crowd started spreading the word that I had plotted to ruin Wei Huai, saying someone like me would definitely survive until the final episode in the imperial harem. I shot right back, oh, absolutely, he's the epitome of foolishness, so foolish that he cornered a female classmate late at night, nearly got physical, and then had the nerve to blame her for calling the police. What, are we supposed to give him a pass just because he's unhinged? And what a fool, he even knows how to frame people. Absolutely terrifying. Soon enough, they went quiet on the other end. How boring, they folded so easily. I was actually looking forward to the next round, 8, but in this second chance at life, I naturally wouldn't be content with just that. My mom has been depositing my New Year's money in a bank account under my name every year, and she even gave me the card. Over the years, those small savings have really added up, and the account now holds around 30,000 yuan. I was the one who set the password. Thanks to my past life, I have a good grasp of stock trading. Not to mention my foresight, in just half a semester, it multiplied dozens of times over. I didn't hide the fact that I withdrew the money from my mom. My dad passed away early, and she's had a hard time supporting the family on her own. I just told her I started with a simulation, and when I realized I was right more often than not, I took a chance. In the end, I came up with all sorts of excuses to settle her down. With that money, life became much easier for my mother and me. Soon after the World Cup came around, I went on a full-blown gambling spree. In just one short month, I've amassed a fortune I could never have even dreamed of in my past life. It suddenly hit me. This is the true meaning of rebirth. To make as much money as humanly possible, of course. As for why I remember most of the scores so clearly, I have to thank Wei Huai from my previous life for droning on about them in my ear so relentlessly. 9. In my previous life, I was in the top 3 of my class. But I could only make it into the top 20 in my grade. With enough money, I immediately signed myself up for one-on-one tutoring. By the time of the senior year mock exams, I was already in the top 5 of my grade. One reason our school is so strict about cracking down on early relationships is that our area is relatively underdeveloped and quite remote. Most families here are of modest means, so education is realistically our most viable path forward. I don't have any negative feelings toward my classmates. On the contrary, I've received a lot of help from everyone, so I directly used a portion of the money to support the underprivileged students in our class. At the same time, I also hired a teacher to run a free tutoring class. When people asked why I'd suddenly become so generous, I put it on my mom, saying we'd won an 800,000 yuan lottery. After buying a house, there was some left over. And mom said good fortune should be shared with everyone. I didn't dare say too much. After all, it's best not to flaunt your wealth. But within my means, I'm still willing to help the people around me. Song Xian and Wei Huai didn't show up for the tutoring session, all because of their pride, but that was only part of the story. The bigger issue was the emotional baggage between them. This time, I wasn't involved. They still didn't end up together. It seems they always needed a third party to validate their feelings for each other. While the rest of us were buried in preparations for the college entrance exams, those two were still stuck wondering if the other one liked them. Song Xian did it just to make Wei Huai jealous. I started dating the school bully from the neighboring school. Wei Huai got into a fight with him over her, got hit in the head, and ended up unconscious. So, Unsurprisingly, Song Xian has been crying in the classroom almost every day since. When the girl next to her tried to comfort her, she just said helplessly, "I really didn't mean for this to happen. I thought he didn't like me anymore. I truly never imagined he would go that far, but we're just not meant to be together. My parents would never approve." The more they talk, the more ridiculous it gets. It's as if they won't even live to see the end of the college entrance exams. I guess I'm a little messed up in the head too. I can't believe I'm actually thinking this might be a welcome distraction in the final stretch of senior year. Then again, the college entrance exam is just so damn hard. I guess they're the only two who don't feel that way. To my surprise, Wei Huai actually came back to school after being discharged from the hospital, and he set his sights on me again. Damn it. Why doesn't he go bother Song Xian with his melodramatic crap? He comes to me every single day to act like a lunatic. First, during class, he kept staring at me, making my skin crawl. The moment the bell rang, he started walking towards me, step by step. My friends and I were on high alert, ready for anything. I even had my hand on a fruit knife, wondering if this would count as self-defense. He suddenly blurted out, rather presumptuously, Xian, when are you going to start tutoring me? We've already wasted so much time, me, my friends, tutoring. Tutoring my foot. I had a hunch. Actually, looks like someone knocked a few of his past life memories loose with that hit, but what's that got to do with me? Does thinking about it more just make you dumber? With the kind of relationship we have, he actually thought I'd tutor him. I gave him a cold, dismissive look and said, "And you are?" He actually had the nerve to look all hurt and offended. Xin, you've changed. Do you need me to call a doctor for you, Xin? I knew you still cared about me. I'm really fine now. Me, wow. After being discharged, he's even more disgusting than before. Even someone with a mental illness needs to take medication and see a doctor. Has no one ever told you that? I continued, my voice dripping with sarcasm. He was taken aback for a moment. Then, with eyes full of hurt, he said, "Sorry, my mistake." What a melodrama. Shouldn't he go find his destined love letter girl for a makeup lesson before making an entrance? Just had to come and make a fool of himself in front of me. What a shoddy production. Is the bar for actors really this low now? 10. I thought I'd be rid of the two of them soon, with only 2 months and 10 days left until the college entrance exams. Little did I know, those 2 months and 10 days would be so agonizing to get through. Every day feels like an eternity. I'm on pins and needles. And it's like having a fishbone stuck in my throat. Wei Huai just seems to have a few screws loose. He does these self-congratulatory things every single day. Every morning when I get to the classroom, there's the breakfast he bought, sitting on my desk. He just stood there, looking at me cautiously and saying, "I remember you used to like these. If you don't, I can go buy something else." Wei Huai, are you out of your mind? Please stop playing these pointless games with me, or I swear I'll have you committed to a psych ward or thrown in jail. One or the other, I threatened him. Xin. How did you become so cold-hearted? His eyes were slightly red. This pink eye has plagued him for 2 lifetimes now. I really hope he can work and save up enough to get it treated properly in this one. But my threat went in one ear and out the other. He went and bought me lunch again. Wei Huai, why don't you just get a job delivering takeout? You're so fond of bringing people food. It's right up your alley, so I'm the only one you're picking on. Is that it? Xin, I just want you to eat well. This is insane. I really can't take it anymore. Seeing that I remained silent, he continued, Xin, I have the right to choose who I'm good to. He's insane. I've given up trying to reason with him. I contacted the homeroom teacher directly. Sorry, my dear teacher who's always worried about me. The best I can do to repay you after graduation is to send you a few stock tips. I stuck to my story that Wei Huai was harassing me. The homeroom teacher talked to him about it a few times. He continued to do things his own way, as always. In the end, the school had no choice but to let him study from home. After all, the last month or two were mostly just review and exams anyway, and his probationary status hadn't even been lifted yet. Just before he left, he came to see me again. He looked utterly heartbroken and said, Xin, do you really hate me that much? I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I pretended not to have a clue. What on earth are you talking about? If you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to call the police. Xin, you really don't remember, do you? Xin, last time, were you trying to get me thrown in jail? How could you turn on me so viciously all of a sudden? Are you for real? Who gave you permission to call me that? Did I tell you to have people ambush me at night? Is being dumber by the day the only thing you're good for? Oh wait, no, you're also getting more annoying by the day. I attacked him without holding back in the slightest. I can't figure out why. After remembering his past life, He came looking for me instead of seeking out Song Xian to rekindle their old flame. But if I can get a few digs in, I'm not going to pass up the chance. No, 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 that's not what I meant. I was just, he floundered, trying to explain but not knowing where to begin. Stop looking for me. It's really getting on my nerves. With that, I turned and walked back into the classroom. Wei Huai didn't stick around either. He slunk off the school grounds in disgrace. I just never expected Song Xian to come looking for me again. Is this your little scheme? Well, you've won. He's starting to like you. Me. Do these two lunatics think I'm an easy target? Do you take me for a fool just because I haven't lost my temper? Is this the extent of your intelligence? You've truly redefined my understanding of idiocy. Why don't you go to drama school instead of using me for your daily rehearsals? Is delusional disorder contagious or something? So you two lovebirds are completely off your rockers. Is that it? How exactly did I win? Win what? Is there anything in that head of yours besides this sappy romance nonsense? I wasn't even done tearing into them, and she ran off crying, again, for God's sake. I'm gonna have you both committed one of these days. 11. The grueling wait is finally over. The college entrance exams are here. I'm as nervous and excited as my classmates, even though I've been through this once before in a past life, but back then, I was nothing but a failure. This time, I will reclaim the glory that is rightfully mine. I was in a perfectly good mood, that is, until that lunatic came looking for me again, indulging in his signature self-aggrandizing performance, Xin. I wish you a future as bright as the stars. He skipped the college entrance exam just to wait for me outside the school gate all morning, and all for this one sentence. But I wasn't the least bit moved. Of course my future is bright. I'm that good. What about you? Found a decent school to repeat your senior year? If not, maybe try a 5+2 performing arts prep course. After all, that's the hobby you share with her. As a classmate, I do hope you succeed. Just keep the drama on stage. And stop dragging innocent people into your little performances. Alright, Xin. Do we really have to be like this? Do I know you? No, you don't, he muttered dejectedly, head bowed. Before turning and walking away, I headed towards the exam hall, carrying my pencil case and admission ticket. I'm determined to live a brilliant and fulfilling life. 12. After the college entrance exams, our class held one final get-together. Wei Huai showed up too, while my classmates and I were there, drinking and enjoying each other's company. He just sat there next to me, staring at me with that same old look. So annoying, couldn't be bothered with him, but there was a silver lining. Since I got a second chance at life and made some money, I was able to help a few classmates who had dropped out finish high school. I even told them a kind-hearted sponsor, an old classmate of my mom's who's now a business owner, was willing to fund their college education. Oh, it's all made up. The real generous one is, of course, yours truly. My principle is basically this: I'm happy to help, but I won't go looking for trouble. After dinner, we all went to sing karaoke at the KTV. To be honest, I can be pretty petty. It was Wei Huai's own choice to tag along. Then don't blame me for what happens next. When it was my turn to sing, I deliberately chose a Korean song that Wei Huai had once taught me. It was the theme song, I believe, from My Sassy Girl. Wei Huai had practiced it countless times. It was the song he had intended to sing to confess his feelings to Song Xian. He sang this very song at our graduation party in our past life. He was clearly singing it for her, but in the end, he lied and told me it was for me. I was so moved that I listened to it countless times afterwards. Yet he still pretended not to know and calmly taught me how to sing it. I picked up the microphone and started singing the song along with the beat. He stood there, completely stunned, not even noticing the wine glass that had slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. After finishing the song, I made my excuses about a family matter and left immediately. Wei Huai followed me out. I walked on ahead. He was following behind me. Neither of us spoke a word the whole way. Just as we neared the entrance to my apartment complex, he could no longer hold back. He walked up to me, his voice choked with tears, and said, Xin, you remember everything, don't you? Remember what? Are you losing your mind again? Yes, I am crazy. You're driving me insane. He moved towards me again, trying to embrace me. I pointed the stun baton at him and said, take one more step and see what happens. He raised his hands, explaining anxiously, Xin, please believe me. I won't hurt you again. Ha, you think too highly of yourself. Do you even have what it takes? Honestly, I'm really sick of you. Just the thought of you makes me sick. Sick. Aren't the things you've done sickening? Right, you're right. I won't bother you anymore. He turned and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. 13. Because of my rebirth, I had accumulated a great deal of foreknowledge after the college entrance exams. I used the money I made from the World Cup to invest in various industries I was familiar with: real estate, the internet, stocks, and funds. I had already amassed a fortune during my university years that I never could have imagined. It's true what they say, money flows to those who already have it. I never used to believe in things like past lives, fate, or deities. However, this unique experience led me to realize that this money was merely passing through my hands. I returned to my economically underdeveloped hometown. There, I started businesses and opened factories, and also invested $50 million to build a school. I brought in more teaching staff, determined to make a difference here because of my efforts. This is the true purpose of my rebirth. With the knowledge of a prophet, how could I be content to wallow in trivial matters of love and hate? I must become a better, more powerful person. 14. It was many years later that I heard about Wei Hui again. At the time, I was launching a new round of the inspirational scholarship at the school, expanding the number of recipients to 100. Some of our old classmates had also returned to the school to become teachers. She mentioned Wei Hui to me, saying she didn't know when his mental health issues had begun. He sought out sages and monks everywhere, desperate to know if there was an afterlife, if reincarnation was real. And what was truly astonishing was that Song Xian, the campus beauty, stayed by his side the whole time. No matter what was said, it would always make him turn back. Upon hearing this, I merely offered a faint, wry smile. After all, they're just someone who doesn't matter anymore. Learning how to love is their lesson to learn, and I have my own path to walk. I was in a relationship with someone I deeply admired. We were both dedicated to charitable work, given a second chance at life. I'm truly content with who I am now. Side story, Wei Hui. When I realized I had been reborn, my heart was filled with joy. In my past life, I abandoned Xin to save the person I once loved most, and then, Xin perished in that great fire. In the end, I never ended up with Song Xian. It always felt like we drifted apart over the most inexplicable things. She was so insecure, always needing proof of my love. Even though Xin had passed away, she kept pressing me, asking, "Does her death make her more important to you? Then I might as well die too." Those words hit me like a bomb. I completely lost control and slapped her. She ran out, crying. I called and texted her, but got no reply. A month later, she got a new boyfriend. I rushed over to confront her, but ended up getting hit by a car. She ran over, hugged me, and said she just wanted to know if I still had feelings for her. Did I or didn't I? That question had haunted us for nearly a decade. Does she really not know how I feel about her? I suddenly feel so exhausted. I need to prove my feelings for her through countless actions. True affection is leaving work during a meeting to come home and cook for her, driving over 100 kilometers round trip to buy her that specific food she loves, only to come home exhausted. That's what it means to truly care for her. Getting into a bloody fight with other guys who are into her. That's the proof of real affection. I think I'm genuinely worn out. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier. At that moment, Xin suddenly came to mind. She must really dislike me. Just as I thought, she truly despises me. The woman who once loved me so deeply actually schemed to have me sent to prison. I went to see her, and her eyes were so cold, as if we had never met. They were even filled with disgust. I truly cannot accept this. I want us to go back to the way we were, only to realize I was the one left standing still. There's no going back for us. Until that song from that night, a flicker of hope was rekindled in me. She must be just like me. We are both reborn. Then her grudge must only be about our past lives. I can make it up to her. Clinging to my last shred of hope, I followed her home. Then I heard those words that felt like a waking nightmare. She said she couldn't stand the sight of me, that it made her sick, and that she'd even had a dream about me that was utterly repulsive. In the dream, I was even more vile and despicable. I understand what she was talking about now. Was it just a dream? Could a mere dream make her feel such disgust and revulsion? But what is real, and what is an illusion? Thanks to the good fortune from my past life, I managed to get into university after repeating a year. It just wasn't the same one as hers, but I chose to be in the same city. But the city was so vast that we never once bumped into each other. I went to her campus a few times to catch a glimpse of her in secret. She's truly different from before, radiant now, no longer just a little star. I didn't disturb her anymore. Drawing on memories from my past life, I pieced together the remaining clues and managed to make some money. But I often feel as if all of this is just a dream. I woke from the dream. My Xin would be right beside me. We'd make our cozy little home, and she'd push me to study for my certifications. But this dream seems like it just won't end. I'm even starting to wonder if my past life was the real dream, so I went everywhere searching for answers. To my surprise, Song Xian actually came to keep me company. She had changed. 2. She no longer needed me to prove how much I loved her, she just wants me to go back to the way I was. But can any of us really go back to the way we were? The end. Story 2. In my past life, I hated Shen Liangzhou for taking my innocence while drunk. When I left, I was so resolute that I refused to even keep the child. Later, he died in a fire while saving me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of our divorce. When I rushed back from his competitor's victory banquet, he was celebrating his son's birthday with him. Shen Liangzhou stood there, gazing at me heavily, his eyes utterly lifeless. I ran over and hugged him, choking back sobs. I don't want a divorce anymore. He froze momentarily, his expression dimming. You can torment me however you like, but it's our child's birthday today. Could you at least stay and have a piece of cake with him? I'm begging you. 1. The sizzling sound of skin burning still seemed to echo in my ears. The raging flames distorted everything. The firefighters were breaking down the door. Shen Liangzhou, who had always been fastidious, was propped above me, desperately fending off the devouring flames. Even in his final moments, he was still apologizing to me, after being rescued. My usually distant son wept uncontrollably, clutching my hand and trembling as he comforted me. Mom, don't be afraid. I raised my hand to wipe the tears from my son's cheek, but it fell limply back down. Until the last moment before death, I never got the chance to express my love to the two most important people in my life. When I opened my eyes again, I could still feel the despair of that moment. The clamor of celebration flooded my ears. Zhou Yang's joyful eyes danced into my view. Henin, I'm so happy today. Wine glasses clink lightly. He lowered his gaze to me, probing with a hint of ambiguity. Also celebrating your divorce. Divorce. My pupils dilated abruptly. I was reborn in the year I despised Shen Liangzhou the most, the same year we got divorced. In my past life, Shen Liangzhou and I weren't close. One drunken night, he forced himself on me, and the video spread like wildfire throughout our social circle. But my heart already belonged to someone else. This stain forced me to seal away my true feelings. Under pressure from my family and the gossip from outsiders, I had no choice but to marry him. After marriage, I never gave him a kind look. No matter how he tried to make amends, I would always stab him with the sharpest words. We became a resentful couple. It was only later that I found out that drunken incident was a setup targeting him, and he was also a victim. There was no forced marriage coercion at all. Everything was merely a fabricated lie concocted by my parents to achieve their ends. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, before I could even spend proper time with Shen Liangzhou, he perished in flames for my sake. Under Zhou Yang's slightly furrowed brows, I hastily set down the wine glass and dashed out, clutching my skirt. Xiao Han, Zhou Yang's voice was already displeased, but I had no time to care. I needed to see Shen Liangzhou and my son. I didn't have time in my past life, but in this one, I will love them well. 2. I've never driven a car this fast before, with memories flashing before my eyes. This was the day I filed for divorce from Shen Liangzhou, and also our son Shen Xingbai's birthday. I coldly rejected my son's birthday request, believing it was just another one of Shen Liangzhou's tactics to trap me. Then I dressed up and attended the victory celebration of my childhood friend Zhou Yang. We drank until the sky turned pale, supported by Zhou Yang. I stumbled out and saw Shen Liangzhou sitting in the car. He seemed to have waited all night, the cigarette between his fingers already burned out, his expression utterly desolate. In my memory, Shen Liangzhou never smoked. This was also the first time I witnessed Shen Liangzhou, who wielded absolute power in the business world, showing such a pitiful and humble expression. But I loathed him to the extreme and turned to leave. Xiao Han. He got out of the car and walked toward me with an air of desolation. Dawn broke, and all thoughts fell silent. His eyes were bloodshot as he lowered his gaze and whispered softly, "The stars waited for you all night. Can you wish him a happy birthday?" I curled my lips in a sneer and mocked. Shen Liangzhou, is this amusing? The moment I signed the divorce papers, I made it clear, I want neither you nor our son. Back then, you forced me to give birth to him, otherwise. How could I have borne the son of a rapist? Shen Liangzhou fell silent, his expression dimming after a long pause. I wronged you that day, he said hoarsely. Enough, I don't want to see you again, get out of here. I glared at him with bloodshot eyes. After that day, I never saw Shen Liangzhou again. It wasn't until my son was kidnapped that I reconnected with Shen Liangzhou. Later, I realized I was merely a sharp arrow shot at Shen Liangzhou by someone else's hand. Sweat beaded in my palms. Familiar scenery rushed toward me as the car entered the garage. A sudden break made my heart feel like it would leap out of my chest. I couldn't wait to push open the car door and sprint 100 meters. When I saw Shen Liangzhou's cold, stern yet outstanding face, tears silently rolled down. Shen Liangzhou stood in the shadows, gazing heavily at me with lifeless eyes. like a solitary grave. My son saw me, his dark grape-like eyes instantly lighting up. "Mommy," with a clear, bright voice. Xingxing said proudly. "Daddy, look, I told you it was Mommy coming back," I murmured. "Xingxing." With an expectant face, Xingxing asked cautiously, "Mommy, are you back to celebrate my birthday with me?" I discovered I was pregnant during the second month of my marriage. My heart felt like dead ashes at that time. I resented, cried, and made scenes, but ultimately gave birth to this child under Shen Liangzhou's coercion. I detested Shen Liangzhou, so I couldn't even bear to glance at this child. From the moment he was born, he was handed over to a nanny for care. Perhaps it was maternal instinct, but watching him grow bit by bit, I couldn't help wanting to get close to him. Yet the thought of how he came to be filled me with intense self-loathing. Gradually, I even grew afraid of seeing this child. Deliberately distanced herself from him and treated him coldly. Eventually, it led him to develop tendencies toward autism. I walked toward my son with a heart full of guilt. Shen Liangzhou blocked my path, gripping my hand with restrained emotion. "It's his birthday today. Don't tell him about our divorce." 3. What? Did he think I was going to tell the kids about the divorce? Xingxing peeked out from behind, blinking curiously, then became cautious when looking at me. "Daddy. What are you talking about with Mommy? Can't Xingxing listen?" Shen Liangzhou gently patted his head. "Daddy and Mommy have something to discuss. Can you be good and cut the cake?" The little star lowered its head dejectedly. "All right then." Couldn't help but steal another longing glance at me. Shen Liangzhou and I walked out to the balcony. He stood in the shadows, swallowed by darkness. There's an unbreakable layer of dark clouds in the eyes. I couldn't help but walk towards him. Yet he took a step back. The distance between us remains neither too far nor too close, yet the words he spoke didn't match his cold and restrained demeanor. "Are you really this happy about divorcing me? Did you come running here in the dress your lover gave you just to show me how happy you are now?" What? I froze. His gaze fell on my golden mermaid tail gown with flowing embellishments. I remember now. This dress I'm wearing was indeed given to me by Zhou Yang. But Zhou Yang gave this to me before the banquet. How did he know? "I'm sorry, I'll go change out of it right away." "Okay." I tugged at the zipper and hurried toward the bedroom. Shen Liangzhou called out to me. "Xiao Han, all your belongings were already packed up this afternoon." He closed his eyes and asked, "What exactly do you want to do?" Looking at Shen Liangzhou's cold expression that kept me at arm's length. My eyes reddened as I uncontrollably choked out. "I don't want a divorce anymore." Afraid he wouldn't believe me, I stepped forward and actively hugged him. He suddenly stiffened, his fingers curling. I pressed my advantage, nuzzling his neck. "Shen Liangzhou, I regret it. Let's not get divorced." "Okay." The next moment, he coldly pushed me away, his eyes concealing barely perceptible pain. "I can smell alcohol on you." He mocked himself. What? Trying to use me as Zhou Yang's substitute again, deliberately seducing me just to humiliate me. Once, to get back at him, I deliberately got drunk and got close to him, but his restrained aloofness completely infuriated me. If he's truly this principled, why did he touch me that night and even publicize the video? In a fit of anger, I stripped off my clothes and rushed into the bathroom. With him stunned, I hooked my arms around his neck and kissed him. I pressed forward step by step, from initial indifference. He gradually crumbled, surrendering sweetly to my venting. The pattering water sounds mingled with indistinct voices. Who knows whose? He suddenly pinned me against the wall. With a decadent smile, I wrapped my arms around his neck and teased him by hooking my leg around his waist. As he was lost in his obsession, I leaned close to his ear and, with a laugh, vengefully called out Zhou Yang's name. To this day, I still remember his shattered and desolate expression. Now that he doesn't trust me, I have only myself to blame. I looked at him helplessly, my eyes brimming with tears. Seeing me cry so intensely, Shen Liangzhou lowered his eyes and said with self-abandonment, "Forget it, I spoke too much." Before leaving, "Have a piece of cake with our son." He turned and left, the moonlight bleak and desolate. In our past life, there were too many regrets between us, and now I don't want to miss him again. Clenching my fists, I mustered all my courage and threw myself at him, kissing his lips the moment his pupils trembled violently. He has a cold demeanor, yet his lips were unexpectedly soft. I tentatively licked with the tip of my tongue. He abruptly gripped my waist, his voice tight and hoarse. "Xiao Han, don't provoke me. I'm not like before, letting you humiliate me." I kissed him deeper, going all in. "If I lie to you again, just lock me up, okay? Make it so I can never leave you." Shen Liangzhou's breathing suddenly grew heavy, like a beast slowly tearing away its cold disguise. In my past life, I only learned by chance that Shen Liangzhou had prepared a basement room. It's all my belongings inside, yet the one who locked it was himself. during those years of divorce, he went mad, afraid he couldn't resist locking me away. He locked himself up first. I held him tighter. Shen Liangzhou, this time I'm truly. Suddenly, a blinding light flashed, and horns blared wildly. Shen Liangzhou suddenly came to his senses. He instinctively shielded me behind him. Zhou Yang sat in the car, glaring at Shen Liangzhou with a sinister gaze. The next moment, Shen Liangzhou's phone rang. Zhou Yang's gloomy, provocative voice came through the phone. Make her come down. Shen Liangzhou hung up the phone expressionlessly. He turned to look at me, his Adam's apple bobbing with difficulty. It's your freedom to like Zhou Yang, but I don't want the child to see it. He's still young, and you're the mother he cares about most. Count me in, I beg you. My eyes widened in shock. He wouldn't think that I deliberately called Zhou Yang here to provoke him, would he? When returning from the balcony, Xingxing was eagerly holding up a small cake. Seeing me come out, he excitedly ran a few steps holding the cake. When our eyes met, his little face turned red, and he shyly walked over. Mom, the first piece is for you. Afraid I might refuse, he kept watching me nervously, his tiny eyebrows furrowed into a shape. I took a bite, and his eyes instantly curved into little crescents. It's very sweet, I said. The little star spun around in delight. Sigh. The little ones are so much easier to please than the grown-ups. I looked at Shen Liangzhou. The slight curve of his lips instantly straightened. Suddenly, there came a violent knocking at the door from outside. Shen Liangzhou's face turned as cold as a block of ice. I wanted to ignore it, but the knocking outside grew louder and louder. Xingxing cast a fearful glance toward the door. I softly reassured, don't be afraid, Xingxing. Mom's colleague needs to talk to her about something. Let me go handle it, and you can eat your cake first. Okay. Hearing this, Xingxing's little face scrunched up. He clutched my skirt tightly, refusing to let go. Shen Liangzhou said sternly. Xingxing glared at Shen Liangzhou resentfully, reluctantly letting go of his hand, then looked at me with eager eyes. Mommy, I'll wait for you to come back. I patted his head. Don't worry, Mommy will definitely come back to celebrate your birthday with you. Only then did a smile return to Xingxing's face. Before leaving, Shen Liangzhou stood by the entrance, gazing at me with a heavy expression. Why make promises you can't keep? The stars are stubborn. If he doesn't see you come home tonight, he won't go to sleep. Does he think I'm leaving? I paused while changing my shoes and called Zhou Yang outside right in front of him. Henin, are you okay? Did Shen Liangzhou pressure you again? Hearing this, Shen Liangzhou lowered his eyes and turned to leave. I firmly grabbed his hand and said to Zhou Yang, Shen Liangzhou didn't force me. Now I need to celebrate my son's birthday. Please leave. I did have feelings for Zhou Yang before. We grew up together, and I developed a secret crush on him in my youth, but he always pretended not to notice, neither rejecting nor accepting my feelings. Even that drunken incident had his hand behind it, simply because he wanted to snatch an important project from Shen Liangzhou and make him the target of public criticism. Unfortunately, by the time I found out, it was already too late. Haven't you already gotten divorced? As Shen Liangzhou's fingers slipped from my palm, I forcibly interlocked our hands and shouted at Zhou Yang. This is a matter between husband and wife. Zhou Yang, you've crossed the line. Zhou Yang sneered. Henin, are you angry with me? Fine, don't regret it. Moments later, the sound of a car engine starting came from outside. I looked at Shen Liangzhou expectantly, waiting for praise. He merely glanced at me before turning away. Your son is waiting for you. Could it be that he thinks I'm using him to deliberately make Zhou Yang jealous? This is infuriating. If gentle persuasion doesn't work, should we try being tough with him? Maybe tying him up and teaching him a lesson will make him behave. 5. Xingxing was unusually hyper tonight. It took both me and Shen Liangzhou taking turns to finally get him to sleep. When I came out of the shower barefoot, wearing Shen Liangzhou's shirt, he was sitting there with silver-framed glasses on, holding our son's storybook, noble and elegant, irresistibly alluring yet restrained. His gaze paused, lingering on my fair neck for just a moment before he restrainedly looked away. He closed his eyes and asked, Xiaohan, what are you trying to do now? There are no clothes of mine here, so I can only wear yours. I clumsily stepped on my own foot in confusion. Shen Liangzhou quickened his pace. Go to bed early. In my haste to catch up, I slipped and fell on the wet floor. Shen Liangzhou halted abruptly, his expression tense as he picked me up with a furrowed brow. It's nothing serious, just a bruised knee. While he was spraying the medicine for me, I lifted my foot and stepped on his bulging chest, deliberately revealing that glimpse of skin beneath the shirt hem. But Shen Liangzhou's adherence to male virtue is downright outrageous. With a cold gaze, he used his own pajamas to dry my damp foot, then stood up to leave, furious. I flipped over and sat astride his waist. Shen Liangzhou, I want you. He looked up at me, his breath tight. yet his expression remained cold and stubborn. "You just want to humiliate me, don't you?" Sensing something, I shifted lower, just as I'd expected. What a stubborn mouth. The veins on his neck bulged instantly. Shen Liangzhou turned his face away in panic, his neck and chest flushing red. Rising and falling with barely suppressed breaths, I roughly grabbed his hair. Forcing his neck to fully expose itself to my gaze, I demanded arrogantly, "Shen Liangzhou, I'm already like this, satisfy me." He closed his eyes bitterly, as if willingly falling into a trap. Furious, I nibbled his earlobe and whispered breathlessly, "Husband, look at me." His knuckles pressing against the sheets instantly tensed, fingertips turning white. I kissed my way upward, lifting the hem of his pajamas like soothing a puppy, my fingers exploring inside. He trembled slightly, still unmoved. As if resisting me, or perhaps resisting the self within, I could only hold him tighter, wanting him to believe that all of this was my own willing choice. I bit open the buttons one by one, leaving his pajamas crumpled. His unique cold fragrance ran rampant at the tip of my nose, stirring my desires. "Shen Liangzhou." I called his name over and over, my fingertips tracing over his Adam's apple as it bobbed. When my fingers pressed against his lower abdomen, his eyes darkened abruptly. Like a beast breaking free from its cage, suddenly pinning me down on the bed, he held me from behind, pressing tightly against me, pushing into me. The pounding heartbeat was deafening through the chest cavity. I couldn't help curling my toes, both anticipating and fearful. Moments later, Shen Liangzhou said hoarsely, "Xiao Han, don't push me. It's not worth it just to prove a point." 6. The more gentlemanly he acts, the more determined I am to tear off his disguise completely. I twisted my waist and called his name impatiently. His undeniable presence made me feel certain of victory. Pushed to his limit, Shen Liangzhou uttered hoarsely, "Xiao Han." I nuzzle lightly against his neck. Suddenly, he scoops up my waist and flips me over, with hands braced beside my ears. His eyes darken as he kisses me fiercely. Even my breath is stolen away. He seemed intent on teaching me a harsh lesson, making me pay for my earlier provocation. My mind was in chaos. My eyes were misty with unshed tears. Shen Liangzhou, clinging to his last shred of rationality, glared at me fiercely. "You can still leave now if you want to." How could I? I wouldn't miss this for the world. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him first, answering him wordlessly. Finally got what I wished for. I tightly gripped his fingers, my eyes moist. "Shen Liangzhou." As soon as I opened my mouth, he covered it with his hand. "It's too late to beg for mercy now." He flipped me over, forcing me to kneel at the head of the bed. He pressed against my waist and growled viciously, "Xiao Han, you asked for this." 7. In my past life, Shen Liangzhou always maintained a cold and distant demeanor in front of me. He would rather lock himself away than harm me, so much so that I never expected the beast unleashed tonight to be so ferocious, calm, composed, and disciplined. These were my greatest misconceptions about Shen Liangzhou. Wait, the moment I opened my mouth, he pinched my chin and kissed me, completely silencing my words. Words shattered, unable to resist, only to endure. Finally found a chance to beg for mercy. Shen Liangzhou wore a hurt expression that seemed to say, "What trick are you playing now?" So I swallowed all my words. "He has suffered for too long." Smiling, I clung to his shoulders and kissed his furrowed brow. "Shen Liangzhou, whatever you want to do, it's all yours. I'll give you everything." Suddenly tamed, his movements became gentle. Feeling dampness against my neck, Shen Liangzhou pressed close to my ear and whispered a threat. "Xiao Han, if you dare deny this tomorrow, I'll do exactly as you said, lock you away." Lock me away." I murmured in agreement. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Zhou Yang. My sweaty fingers were about to hang up. My finger trembled and accidentally hit answer. The voice from the phone came through intermittently. "Sis, Yang Ji is drunk and keeps making a scene demanding to see you. We can't handle him. Could you come over?" The person who had just calmed down became agitated again. I couldn't help but start worrying about my waist. Get lost. I gritted my teeth and hung up the phone. I had finally managed to calm Shen Liangzhou down, and now all that effort went down the drain. On the verge of breaking down, I held on to Shen Liangzhou and spoke in broken, incoherent words. "Shen Liangzhou, I don't like basements. They're pitch black. Could you lock me in a room with windows? I love beautiful flowers. Plant a circle of them outside, preferably so I can see them the moment I open the window." "Ah." Shen Liangzhou suddenly froze, wrapping around me like an octopus, pressing me tightly against his chest, his voice alluring. "So spoiled. Who told you to be my husband? What did you call me, honey? My back will probably be wrecked by tomorrow morning." He carried me to the window to admire the moonlight, pointing at the lawn below as he meticulously planned which flower varieties to plant, lots and lots of them, until I completely lost consciousness. 8. I woke up groggily to find Shin Liangzhou wiping me down. I muttered something unconsciously before falling into a deep sleep. Waking up again felt like a lifetime had passed. The heavy curtains blocked out all light. A pair of eyes gazed at me with near greed. "You're awake." Shin Liangzhou sat by the bed, having watched me for who knows how long. When I looked at him, his eyes remained cold, staring at the scratches on his chest and back. My face grew hot. "Last night, yeah, you were drunk." Shin Liangzhou spoke flatly as he threw off the covers and got out of bed. "No." I panicked and chased after them, only to collapse back onto the bed in pain. "Damn it. You can't just make me work all night for nothing. Are you okay? This is all your fault." I punched him in the chest. Shin Liangzhou looked ashamed. "Sorry, I even had lunch in bed, slept straight through until 5 p.m. When I opened my eyes again, Shin Liangzhou was in a video conference. Xingxing, coming home from school, tiptoed at the doorway, peering in but too afraid to enter. He kept poking his head in and out, looking several times. Seeing I was awake, he spread his arms and rushed over like a firecracker. Unfortunately, halfway through, his dad grabbed him by the collar and picked him up. Xingxing squirmed in Shin Liangzhou's arms. "Dad, can you give mom to me now? Please, please. Have you finished the homework the teacher assigned?" Xingxing puffed out his little chest. "Finished. Well then, Dad will accompany you to practice the piano." "Huh." Xingxing pouted in frustration. "Dad, how could you do this?" 9. After finishing my morning routine, I was worrying about not having well-fitting clothes to wear, only to find the walk-in closet filled with current designer dresses. Feeling jealous now, I curled my lips into a smile. After changing clothes and stepping out, I saw the two of them playing piano in the living room. Xingxing kept stealing glances at me while practicing the piano. Shin Liangzhou mercilessly called him out. "Can't focus on two things at once," the little star retorted unwillingly, but Dad was clearly peeking too. Watching this scene, I felt my nose tingling with emotion again. At the dinner table, Little Star said he had a red flower taken away today. "Mom, do you want to know why I had a red flower taken away?" He blinked his eyes, his face screaming, "Ask me now." With urgency, I asked, "Why?" He looked at Shin Liangzhou. I also turned my gaze toward Shin Liangzhou. Under our expectant gazes, Shin Liangzhou said indifferently, "Ask him yourself." Xingxing hesitated to speak, then finally flushed red and lowered her small head. "All right." It was me being late for school. Only then did Shin Liangzhou chuckle lightly, "Because I wanted to wait to have breakfast with you, and ended up being late for school." Xingxing immediately covered her face, peeking at me through her fingers. Both of them are secretly flirtatious, but, with an apologetic expression, I said, "Sorry Xingxing, Mom really couldn't get up this morning. However, I can have dinner with you." He became excited again. In the evening, Shin Liangzhou was taking a shower inside. Listening to the sounds, I pushed the door open and leaned against the doorway to watch. Water dripped from his lashes as he looked at me. I said shamelessly, "Don't like being watched." Shin Liangzhou's eyelashes fluttered slightly. I raised the corner of my eye. "Want to tonight?" His wet hand grasped mine and pulled me in. My hand pressed against his chest. "You haven't answered me yet." After a moment of silence, he resignedly said, "Yes." From the bathroom all the way to the bed, until there was a knock at the door, Shin Liangzhou was gathering his strength when I suddenly laughed in his arms. With a dark expression, he put on his clothes and went to open the door. Xingxing hugged his little pillow. "Mom, Dad, I had a nightmare." He craned his neck to peek into the bedroom. "Can we still have a story today? You're a big boy, right? But I'm clearly just a baby." 5 minutes later, Xingxing was sleeping between us as Shin Liangzhou put on his glasses and began reading a fairy tale. Waiting for the stars to fall asleep, Shin Liangzhou carried him back, yawning and drowsy. Shin Liangzhou pressed against my waist, full of resentment. Continue. 10. The next day, I received flowers from Zhou Yang. He made a grand display, having them delivered to the house, clearly intending to provoke Shin Liangzhou. On weekends, the stars are there too. With a gossipy expression, he asked, "Did Dad give these to Mom?" Shin Liangzhou lowered his eyes, deliberately avoiding the question. I immediately threw the flowers into the trash can. No matter how I explained, Shin Liangzhou's reaction remained indifferent. Furious, I grabbed his tie. "Come to think of it, you've never given me flowers. Do you even like me at all?" Shin Liangzhou looked down at me with a bitter expression. "Xiao Han, you don't have to." I tried hard to blink my stinging eyes, forcing out tears. Shin Liangzhou panicked. "I didn't." I turned my back, saying with a sob in my voice, "I won't listen." Hanin. Shin Liangzhou fell silent for a moment before confessing, "I shouldn't have doubted you." I turned and hugged him, confessing honestly, "Shin Liangzhou, I did have feelings for Zhou Yang once. But that was a long time ago. I stopped liking him ages ago." The person I love now is you. Let's live well together with our son from now on. Okay, okay. Shin Liangzhou's words carried immense weight, striking my heart with a tremor. Tears rolled down silently. That very evening, Shin Liangzhou hired a gardener to transform the lawn into a flower bed. Recalling the absurdities from the night before last, I couldn't help but blush. Shin Liangzhou was guiding everything from below, Xing. Being at that playful age, squatted alone in a corner digging holes and planting flowers, getting herself covered in mud, then she rushed to me excitedly like presenting a treasure. Mommy, these are the flowers Xing planted for you. They'll definitely be prettier than all the flowers in the yard. This is what the stars have nurtured with love. His face turned red as he squirmed shyly. Shin Liangzhou stood nearby, watching him coolly. If you water it any more, you'll drown the flowers. Ah, little star hugged the small shovel, his face pale. 11. Shin Liangzhou carried the little clay figurine into the bathroom. Just as I was immersed in this joyful parent-child moment, Zhou Yang's call suddenly came through. I hung up immediately, and the next moment, he called again from an unknown number. Sis, brother Yan drank until he got a stomach hemorrhage and was hospitalized. Can you come see him? I said. Since he's in the hospital, the doctors taking care of him should be enough. The next moment, Zhou Yang's weak voice came through. Henin, I know you're only enduring staying by Shin Liangzhou's side for the sake of the child. I can also help take good care of Xing. I'll be a good father. How come I never noticed before that Zhou Yang is completely nuts? Shin Liangzhou happened to hear this sentence as he stepped out of the shower. He clenched his fists and brushed past me. Damn. If we don't properly handle this matter with Zhou Yang, the rift between me and Shin Liangzhou will always remain. I rushed over and hugged Shin Liangzhou, saying to Zhou Yang, send me the address. Then I dragged Shin Liangzhou into the bedroom. Shin Liangzhou's expression was gloomy. Xiao Han, can't keep up the act anymore. What's with the act? Change your clothes. I slapped his butt. This shameless scoundrel is hitting on a married woman, and you're just going to stand by as her husband. Shin Liangzhou's face flushed slightly red. By the time I finished packing and reached the doorway, Shin Liangzhou was already waiting at the entrance. The suit and tie look was kinda hot. Suddenly in the car, he asked, would you feel bad if I took action? Shin Liangzhou's question didn't sound like a joke. I immediately replied, I'd only feel bad for you, my dear husband. Shin Liangzhou's domineering cold face turned redder and redder. 12. Pushing the door open. Zhou Yang's eyebrows lifted triumphantly when he saw me. Until he spotted Shin Liangzhou behind me, his smile instantly froze. Henin, what do you mean by this? I linked arms with Shin Liangzhou. Weren't you hospitalized for gastric hemorrhage? My husband and I came to visit you together. Are you mad at me? Right. Zhou Yang looked at Shin Liangzhou behind me with certainty. But my blind date with the Song family's daughter was all arranged by my family. I interrupted Zhou Yang. I don't know about your affairs with Miss Song. Nor do I want to. But I'm already married. Please stop doing things that trouble me from now on. In my past life, when Shin Liangzhou and I reconciled, Zhou Yang suddenly started pursuing me frantically. By then, he was already engaged to the Song family, and Miss Song was even pregnant with his child, yet he was willing to sever ties with the Song family just to reserve that wife position for me. Looking back now, it only feels ironic. In my youth, I hinted at him countless times. But to reject me, he dated one girlfriend after another right in front of me. Later when I completely gave up, he selfishly used me to scheme against Shin Liangzhou, simply because he accidentally found out that Shin Liangzhou had a crush on me. After Shin Liangzhou and I became an established fact, he started playing the savior, claiming to rescue me from misery. He was merely exploiting my hatred for Shin Liangzhou to deal with him. Later, when I learned the truth and reconciled with Shin Liangzhou, he lunged at me like a mad dog. I curled my lips into a sneer and said mockingly, Zhou Yang, don't act as if you love me so much. 5 years ago, it was you who drugged my drink and sent me to Shin Liangzhou's bed. It was you who made me live each day filled with resentment. After a moment of panic, Zhou Yang grew furious and retorted, did Shin Liangzhou tell you this? Henin, how could you believe him over me? After all these years we've known each other, how could I do such a thing? He was the one who drugged you. He just wanted to trap you. I slapped him so hard my hand was trembling with rage. So it was you after all. In my past life, outsiders only knew Shin Liangzhou forced me while drunk, unaware we'd both been drugged. At that time, Shin Liangzhou only claimed he had forced himself on me to protect my reputation. Back then, I didn't believe him, convinced he had drugged me, and mocked him as a hypocrite. Panic finally appeared on Zhou Yang's face. No, let's not meet again. The sight of you disgusts me. Shin Liangzhou heartbrokenly rubbed my reddened palms as we turned and walked out of the hospital room together. Henin, let me explain. Zhou Yang shouted hoarsely. followed by the sound of him falling off the hospital bed. He lay on the ground wailing repeatedly, "Hanin, my leg hurts so much. Once I was kidnapped." And Zhou Yang took a knife to his thigh while saving me. Whenever it rains or the weather changes, his wound starts aching. My steps faltered. Shen Liangzhou gripped my wrist, no longer avoiding but pleading in a low voice, "Don't look back, okay?" I clasped Shen Liangzhou's hand in return and strode out. 13. Once in the car, Shen Liangzhou looked at me with guilt. "When did you find out?" I wasn't sure if I should tell him that I was reborn from the future. Such an earth-shattering matter, even if I told him, he probably wouldn't believe it. I simply said, "Not long ago." Shen Liangzhou held me tightly, his voice hoarse as he said, "That day, I'm sorry." I hugged him back and replied, "Why are you apologizing? You're a victim too." "I do." He held me tighter little by little. "If I didn't like you, you wouldn't have to suffer such injustice." That night, both Shen Liangzhou and I were drugged, driven by instinct, unable to distinguish right from wrong. Afterwards, I hated him to the core, also because I mistakenly believed he resorted to unscrupulous means to have me. After marriage, I often felt confused when interacting with him. He was clearly disciplined and followed propriety, treating me with great respect, but my vision was clouded by hatred. Moreover, during my pregnancy, my mother threatened to take her own life to force me to keep the child, saying that if I aborted it, Shen Liangzhou would take action against my family. During that period, my relationship with Shen Liangzhou hit rock bottom. Looking back now, I realize it was probably my parents deceiving me intentionally to climb the social ladder by clinging to the Shen family. 14. Soon, it was the 5th wedding anniversary for Shen Liangzhou and me. I planned to give Shen Liangzhou a surprise. After leaving Xingxing with the babysitter, I booked a restaurant and had just sent Shen Liangzhou an invitation message when I received a call from my elder brother Xiaoyi. "Brother, what's wrong?" His voice was urgent. "Mom suddenly fainted. She's in the hospital emergency now. Come quickly." I was about to ask for details when he hung up the phone. My heart burned with anxiety as I grabbed my bag and rushed out. When I arrived, Mom was lying unconscious on the hospital bed. What did the doctor say? How could she suddenly faint? "Hanin, don't panic yet. Have some water first and calm down." I took the water my elder brother handed me, drank it, and asked, "What exactly happened to Mom?" Xiaoyi looked at me and suddenly smiled. "Nothing serious. It's nothing serious. How could I faint?" Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit me. I shook my head and looked at my family in shock. "You completely lost consciousness." When I opened my eyes again, I found myself locked in my old room. The door was bolted shut, impossible to open. I looked around, then picked up a chair and started smashing it against the door. "Xiaoyi, get your ass over here." Before long, Xiaoyi walked in while fiddling with my phone. "Xiaohan, in the years since you got married, you haven't gained any skills, but your temper has certainly grown." I watched him warily. "What do you want?" "Of course, your brother just wants to help you." He smiled as he handed me the phone. "We really are siblings, sharing the same wavelength. You even came up with an excuse for me in advance." I said nervously, "What are you planning to do to Shen Liangzhou?" He laughed. "Haven't you always wanted to divorce Shen Liangzhou? Just wait and see Shen Liangzhou's reputation ruined and taken away by the police. Guess how many years he'll get for the crime of rape. But don't worry, I'll help you fight for custody of your son. Shen Liangzhou's family assets too." I pushed him away and ran out, only to be yanked back onto the bed by Xiaoyi. "Hanin, I'm doing this to help you get revenge. If I ask him to drink in your name, do you think he'd actually drink it?" I grabbed his hand and stared at him fiercely. "So 5 years ago, when I was drugged and sent to Shen Liangzhou's bed, you allowed that too?" Xiaoyi laughed at my naivety. "My dear sister, you're only realizing this now. You should thank Shen Liangzhou for liking you, otherwise, who knows whose bed you might have ended up in." My whole body turned cold, my heart ached to the point of numbness. "Xiaoyi, you're my own brother, so isn't it only natural for you, as my sister, to sacrifice for me?" With a loud slam, the bedroom door was locked again. 15. I grabbed a chair and desperately smashed it against the door, but it was all in vain. I was sprawled awkwardly against the door. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew by. I turned to look out the window. 2nd floor, with the lawn right below. I made up my mind, adrenaline surging. I don't know how I found the courage to jump, until waves of dull pain exploded across my body. I curled up on the ground for a while, then got up, slipped into the garage, and drove one out at full speed. I knew the restaurant's address. If Xiaoyi was going to strike, he'd only book the hotel upstairs. Can't call the police. Xiaoyi found a woman to frame him, and might even turn the tables when the time comes. This kind of thing is simply impossible to explain clearly. Only when I arrived at the hotel did I realize that Xiaoyi had actually used my ID card to book the room. I ran all the way, hoping to make it in time. Reaching the door, I frantically pounded on it. "Shen Liangzhou, open up." The door opened a crack, and suddenly, a hand yanked me inside. Shen Liangzhou pressed me against the door with an intimidating presence. "Xiao Han. Are you here to catch me cheating?" he whispered darkly in my ear. "But I'm afraid you'll be disappointed." I tried to turn around, but he pinned me against the door, immobile. "Shen Liangzhou, it wasn't me. I'm sorry, I'm late." Shen Liangzhou's grip suddenly loosened, and he fell into my arms, his body burning with fever. "Shen Liangzhou." I held him tightly, panicking. "Call an ambulance." "Yes, call an ambulance." Shen Liangzhou grabbed my hand, struggling to say, "Wait a moment." Wait for what? Until I saw a woman in the room, bound tightly to a chair with sheets, screaming and struggling. Shortly after, his bodyguards took the woman away from the room. Shen Liangzhou had also reached his limit of endurance, clenching his teeth and arching his back. His entire body trembled from the effects of the drug. A tempting flush spreads across the skin, beads of sweat roll down. I held him tenderly, kissing his trembling eyelashes. "Let me help you." "Okay, no. Henin will be upset. She'll blame me. She hates me most for forcing her." He seemed to recall that day 5 years ago, and was desperately restraining himself. I watched as he clawed bloody marks into his own arm to maintain his sanity, but soon he couldn't restrain himself from pressing against me again. He rubbed against me while growling at himself in self-loathing. "Tie me up, please, tie me up." I was also afraid he might hurt himself, so I used his belt to tie him to the chair. He tilted his head back, presenting his neck like a willing sacrifice, exuding an aura that invited cruelty. I pressed against his tense thigh. He growled at me to get lost. I took the opportunity to sit on his lap and teased. "You let me tie you up, didn't you? Just so I could do whatever I want." "No, actions speak louder than words." I leaned down and bit his lips. He was a trapped beast, struggling fiercely yet completely at my mercy. "Don't." The chair could barely contain him. I said maliciously, "Beg me." Shen Liangzhou gritted his teeth and held on for a long time, but ultimately pressed against my shoulder and pleaded in a low voice, "Please, good boy," until the sky turned pale. 16. The next day, when Shen Liangzhou's assistant brought him clothes, he was so frightened by the ligature marks on both wrists that he didn't dare to breathe. The look in their eyes towards me held a bit more admiration. "All right. I did go a bit overboard last night." But who could resist Shen Liangzhou's allure? Shen Liangzhou leisurely changed his clothes. My gaze kept drifting to his wrists, and within seconds, Shen Liangzhou was blushing from the attention. Ahem. After a long while, Shen Liangzhou looked at me and asked, "How do you plan to handle what happened last night?" "Let's report it to the police." My brother was involved too. He's the kind of person who won't stop until he gets what he wants. After saying this, I couldn't describe the mixed feelings in my heart. I never imagined my own family would treat me this way. I've always known that in their eyes, profit comes above all else. But I never expected that I was just a tool for them to achieve their goals. Shen Liangzhou held me and comforted me. "You still have me by your side." In my past life, after I divorced Shen Liangzhou, I never paid attention to his news again. Occasionally, I heard rumors in the circle that Shen Liangzhou had late-night meetings with young models, but as soon as this incident surfaced, it was quickly suppressed. Later on, Xingxing encountered a kidnapping. Now I can't help but suspect Xiaoyi. Shen Liangzhou's parents passed away early, leaving the vast business empire entirely under his management. This is indeed too tempting, or perhaps, even the fire in the previous life was man-made. The more I think about it, the more frightened I become. I grabbed Shen Liangzhou's arm and said, "Shen Liangzhou, I need to confess something to you." Just as I was about to speak, a phone ringtone interrupted me. After Shen Liangzhou answered the call, his expression changed. I felt inexplicably panicked and asked nervously, "What's wrong?" Shen Liangzhou hung up the phone, gently touched my cheek, and reassured me with a smile. "There's a minor issue at the company that I need to handle. You stay here and rest." Shen Liangzhou called a few bodyguards to protect me before leaving in a hurry. My heart suddenly grew even more uneasy. 17. The moment I got my phone, I immediately called Shen Liangzhou. No answer. This made me even more panicked, until I managed to contact his personal assistant. "President Shen is on a business trip these few days and should be on a plane right now, madam. There's no need to worry too much. Today's matter is somewhat urgent, but President Shen will definitely return your call as soon as he gets off the plane." After hanging up the phone, my mind still couldn't calm down. I was in a hurry to go back when the bodyguard who had been following me closely suddenly stopped me. "Madam, President Shen has instructed that you stay here these few days. He's worried your brother might do something to you again." My heart suddenly clenched. What about my son? Don't worry, madam, we've already sent someone to fetch him. Last night, Xiaoyi's scheme failed. At this moment, sending Shen Liangzhou away means his target can only be Xingxing. Could it be that in the previous life, he was the one who sent people to kidnap Xingxing? Is Xiaoyi out of his mind? In the past life, Shen Liangzhou lost half his life trying to save his son. When I arrived, he was lying in the hospital covered in blood. Xingxing was so frightened that she was beside herself, clinging to me and crying uncontrollably. After that, we continued seeing a psychologist for over half a year. It was also during this period that my relationship with Shen Liangzhou gradually improved. But shouldn't this be something that happens 3 years later? I rushed out. I'm going to pick up my son myself. The bodyguard stopped me, all looking troubled. A terrible guess suddenly came to me. Has something happened to my son, 18? In this life, I was still one step too late. When I rushed to the hospital, Shen Liangzhou was lying in the operating room undergoing emergency treatment. On the way to the emergency room, my legs were so weak I could barely stand, a terrifying sense of suffocation, as if fate had me by the throat, until I saw Xingxing lying there crying uncontrollably. He was terrified, and upon seeing me, he threw himself into my arms sobbing, "Mommy, Daddy is bleeding so much." I held him tight, collapsing to the ground, as if comforting him and also myself. "Don't be afraid, Daddy will definitely be okay," until the stars grew weary from crying and fell asleep. I wiped away my tears, pulled myself together, and looked at Assistant Fang beside me, and the gentleman in a suit next to him. "And this is?" I asked. "I am the lawyer commissioned by Mr. Shen. My surname is Su. Some time ago, Mr. Shen entrusted me to draft a will, if anything were to happen to him. I would need to make this will public. I know this might seem somewhat inauspicious to you. Did Shen Liangzhou actually consider even this?" I let out a bitter laugh and turned to Assistant Fang. "Have you called the police?" Assistant Fang hesitated before speaking. President Shen didn't authorize calling the police. How could he be so foolish? In the previous life, did he also keep this from me like this, afraid it would break my heart? For my sake. He was driven to this point by Xiaoyi and his people. I'll report it. 19. That night, the stars slept extremely restlessly, frequently startled awake by nightmares. It wasn't until the sky turned pale that Shen Liangzhou was finally wheeled out of the emergency room. He was temporarily out of danger and transferred to the ICU. When Assistant Fang told me this news, I stood up too abruptly and fainted on the spot. When I came to, Xingxing was clutching my fingers, crying so hard her eyes were swollen. Assistant Fang was tending nearby. "Xingxing was terrified when she saw you faint." I immediately hugged Xingxing. "Mommy was just too tired." "Mommy, I'm scared." Xingxing burrowed desperately into my arms. "It's okay, Mommy will always be with Xingxing. Shall we go see Daddy together?" Xingxing nodded, since visiting hours hadn't started yet. I held Xingxing's hand and watched from afar through the ICU window. 3 days later, Shen Liangzhou woke up and was transferred from the ICU to a general ward. The police also came to take our statements several times. 1 week after Shen Liangzhou regained consciousness, Xiaoyi and Zhou Yang were apprehended. For my brother's sake, my parents begged me several times, but I didn't even meet with them. Xiaoyi hurt the person I care about most in my life. He must pay the price. 20. After Shen Liangzhou was discharged from the hospital, we held a make-up wedding ceremony. All the regrets from 5 years ago, we're making up for them now. The wedding was grand and magnificent. When Shen Liangzhou saw me in the wedding dress, his eyes turned red. Xingxing was dressed in pink, holding flowers with another little girl, serving as flower girls together. The wedding was more exhausting than I imagined. By the end of the day, I lay in bed, not even wanting to move a finger. Shen Liangzhou gave me a bath, just as we snuggled under the covers after bathing. Xingxing started knocking on the door with his little pillow in hand. As soon as the door opened, he tried to rush in with his pillow but was stopped by Shen Liangzhou at the doorway. "Daddy, I want a bedtime story." Xingxing pouted discontentedly. Shen Liangzhou crouched down to reason with him. "Xingxing, tonight is the day Daddy and Mommy got married, so what?" Even in his final moments of life, he was still apologizing to me. "Fine," Xingxing said with a tearful face, turning back every few steps. When I was exhausted and drowsy, Shen Liangzhou suddenly hugged me and whispered in my ear. During those days I was unconscious. I had a very long dream. I dreamed we got divorced, but later reconciled. As Shen Liangzhou kept speaking, I suddenly burst into tears. "Why are you crying?" Shen Liangzhou panicked as he wiped my tears. "It was just a dream, I was only joking." I shook my head, hugged him and said, "Shen Liangzhou, let's have another child. I hope it's a daughter, but it would be so hard on you. Having Xingxing is enough, but I want to." I rolled over and lay on top of him. tonight is our wedding night, you won't let me down, will you? With just a light tease, Shen Liangzhou's gaze towards me grew more desirous. I'll make sure my wife is satisfied. Story 2. I am an orphan girl fostered in the Jiang family. The elders of the Jiang family asked Jiang Du to marry me. I happily married Jiang Du. He didn't refuse either. However, after the marriage, he was indifferent to me. Later, he simply used the excuse of doing business to live apart from me in different places for a long time. My mother-in-law disliked that I hadn't given birth to a child for the Jiang family. She showed me a cold face everywhere. I spent my entire life waiting for Jiang Du and serving my mother-in-law, exhausted both physically and mentally. I lay on the hospital bed. As my husband, Jiang Du didn't come to see me for the last time. Instead, since you kindly told me that Jiang Du was preparing for his wedding with her and didn't have time to see me, Adu said that he will hold the wedding with me right after you die. Feng Wen, you have been the wife of the Jiang family for more than 30 years. My child and I have no status, you should be content. Only then did I know that Jiang Du actually had another family outside. He had a lover and a child. I was the only one who was all alone. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the time when I was in the Jiang family. Jiang Du's mother was still joking. Wen, do you like our Jiang Du? I don't like him anymore. In this life, I want to do the things I truly like. 1. It seemed that I could still smell the smell of the disinfectant in the hospital at the tip of my nose. The torture of the illness was still there. In front of me was Jiang Du's mother, that is, my mother-in-law in my previous life, who was still asking, Wen, do you like our Jiang Du? What do you think of marrying a Du after graduation? In the living room were the friends of the Jiang family and my parents when they were alive. The woman was so kind and gentle, full of love. She was completely different from the difficult and fierce person in my memory of my previous life. Because Jiang Du and I spent very little time together, I had no chance to get pregnant at all. She found all sorts of ways to torture me. I had to drink the extremely bitter medicine for getting pregnant every day without fail. She invited the goddess of mercy for bestowing sons and ordered me to kneel in front of it every day and chant scriptures and pray. This was not the worst. The daily sarcastic remarks were what really made me feel suffocated, not to mention that my mother-in-law asked me to serve her tea and water personally and give her massages. Whenever I showed any intention of resistance, she would wail and cry about the hardships of raising me, an orphan girl. She said that she treated me like her own daughter. She said that when I had nightmares as a child, it was she who hugged and comforted me. She said that when I was sick as a child, it was she who took care of me without taking off her clothes. This was my weakness, so I didn't resist. Wen, don't be shy, say something. My mother-in-law pushed me. Coming back to my senses, I met the woman's eyes that were full of eagerness. If I in my previous life could have observed more carefully, I would have found that this eagerness to match me and Jiang Du was actually eagerness to divide up my property. At that time, I was just a young lady who had been pampered since childhood. I had just experienced the great blow of losing both my parents, and I thought I had found a family and comfort in the Jiang family. How could I have thought so much? But now, I have experienced more than 30 years of a marriage in name only. I have experienced the torture when my mother-in-law tore off her disguise. I can see everything clearly now, so I stood up and smiled. Auntie, you seem to have misunderstood. I only regard Jiang Du as my elder brother, and after graduating from high school, I still want to go to university, too. My mother-in-law's face suddenly turned pale. Asking me today in front of everyone whether I liked Jiang Du was originally to confirm my marriage with Jiang Du. In this way, it would not be criticized for coaxing me to spend the property in my name. My mother-in-law quickly reacted. She naturally stood up and hugged me, and said to everyone, this girl is just shy. Adu, take Wen for a walk in the garden. Jiang Du was sitting on the sofa opposite. The young Jiang Du, young, handsome, and a bit aloof. Since Jiang Du's father was a friend of my parents, Jiang Du and I could barely be considered childhood sweethearts. Since I was a child, I liked to stick around him and ask him to play with me. When we were young, our relationship was quite good. Later, as we grew up, Jiang Du became a bit distant from me. In my previous life, I didn't understand. I just thought that as we grew older, we should pay attention to the issue between men and women. But I didn't want to think that in fact, Jiang Du was tired of me. I was a bit of a proud young lady and had a bad temper, yet he had to obey his parents' orders and do everything I asked. He didn't like me, but he couldn't get rid of me. Naturally, Jiang Du was annoyed. If he just ignored me, that would be fine, but he married me instead. After marrying me, he allowed his mother to torture me. After marrying me, he was affectionate with Sensiu outside. I hated him. I hated myself even more. I was blinded by my feelings and lived such a miserable life. I clenched my fists and then slowly released them. I gently broke free from my mother-in-law's hug. I still had a smile on my face. It's okay, brother. You're going to meet classmates and see you later, right? If you like someone, you should bring them home early, one of the guests said. So Jiang-du already has someone he likes. Then your mother is just matchmaking randomly. Only then did I look at Jiang-du directly. His face was even worse than my mother-in-law's. The corners of his eyes were slightly red. I didn't bother to look anymore. I greeted everyone present and left on my own. 3. After leaving the living room, I went straight to the mailbox in the front yard to search, among the letters one by one. I finally saw the one with me as the recipient, Feng Wen. Jiang-du's voice came from behind. I quickly turned around and hid the letter behind my back. What kind of temper are you throwing today? I frowned. What's wrong? You confessed to me yesterday, and today you say you regard me as your brother. Can you change your habit of doing things on a whim? My mother treats you like her daughter, and you embarrassed my mother in public. I looked at him silently. I remembered my previous life. After the marriage, my mother-in-law also embarrassed me in front of others. I just complained to Jiang-du about it once, and it caused his resentment. He said, "Isn't my mother good enough to you? You can't stand it when she says a few words." So now I also returned these words to him. Auntie treats me like her daughter. Can't a daughter say a few sincere words without being able to stand it? He was speechless. He let out a sigh. You're acting very strange, in his opinion. I was naturally acting strange. After all, after my parents passed away in my previous life, I truly regarded the Jiang family as my home. I changed my previous arrogant temperament, not to mention speaking back to my mother-in-law a few times, even to Jiang-du. I carefully tried to please him. I sneered. So, what are you angry about? Didn't you hate it when I chased after you? Now I say I don't like you. Just as you wish. I wanted to leave after saying that. I still had to open the letter in my hand, but Jiang-du said, I don't have that intention. That doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. Jiang-du, whether you love me or not is meaningless. Upon hearing this, Jiang-du frowned. You don't like it when I say something nice either. Feng Wen, you're still so difficult to get along with. After my parents passed away, I had no one to rely on, so. Jiang-du's attitude towards me also changed a lot. He didn't dare to speak loudly to me before. But now he said in my face that I was difficult to get along with. Am I difficult to get along with? I just didn't act according to his wishes. The so-called saying nice words from him was just to stabilize me first. It would be best to coax me into getting engaged to him. In my previous life, right after the engagement, he used the excuse that the company's business expansion needed funds. He asked me to take out most of my assets to pave the way for him. At that time, private businesses were being liberalized. There were opportunities to get rich everywhere. With my help, Jiang-du took over the real estate and non-staple food businesses in the entire Weiqing and became the richest man in the local area. During the more than 30 years of my loveless marriage, everyone envied me for being the wife of the richest man, but they didn't know that without me, Feng Wen, he, Jiang-du, wouldn't have had the chance to reach such a height at all, in this life. Let me stand at a high place. I'll just look down on the clowns in the Jiang family, watching them jump around and have their wild revelry until they bring about their own destruction. Too lazy to say more. I smiled. I'm just difficult to get along with. So what? If you don't like it, hold it in. 5. When I returned to my room, I couldn't wait to open the letter. In fact, I still have an uncle. He and my mother are half-siblings and now live in the United States. I met this uncle once, at that time. He came to our house to ask for help because he wanted to treat his old mother's illness. My parents gave him a lot of financial support and also introduced a good hospital to him. Later, our two families visited each other from time to time. We lost contact in recent years. In my previous life, I didn't know that in fact, my uncle went abroad to seek his fortune and accidentally became prosperous. It was already a year after he learned the news of my parents' car accident and death. He found out that I was adopted by the Jiang family, so he wrote to contact me. The letter was sent to our original home and then was transferred to the mailbox of the Jiang family. My mother-in-law always knew that there was a letter for me, but she chose to hide the letter and didn't say anything. It was only many years later that I knew that my uncle had been sending me money and letters all the time, but by then, it was already too late. After reading the letter, I learned that my uncle couldn't return to China for some reasons, so he chose to contact me by letter. The letter said that this was his 10th letter, and the content was no different from the previous ones. It was just to introduce his situation abroad and then comfort me. He asked me if I was willing to go to the United States. At that time, the United States was very advanced. It had top-notch education and majors at that time. There were $10 with a large amount in the letter. And there was also a plane ticket to the United States. My nose felt sour. It's so good. I'm not an orphan girl. I still have family. The boarding place is in the neighboring city of Shanghai, and the date is 4 days later. I pulled myself together. Next, I need to deal with the inheritance left by my parents. I won't touch the real estate. These locations are good, and there is hope for appreciation in the future. I will deposit the money separately. I'll take half of it abroad and leave half in the bank. Also, I don't know my uncle very well, so I need to make sure it's safe before I can get in touch with my uncle's family. 6. Fortunately, the college entrance examination was already over. I used the excuse of going to play with my classmates to go out. It's also convenient to deal with things. I happened to meet my classmates at the bank. They were delighted and said, "We were just going to look for you. Come on, let's go to the class reunion." The location of the reunion was chosen in the largest KTV in the city. At that time, singing karaoke was still a very fashionable thing. When I went there, Jiangdu was also there. Someone joked, "What's the matter? Fangwen isn't following you today." "Yeah, where's your little wife?" Jiangdu played with the lighter. "I'm so annoyed. I'm glad she's not here and I can have some peace. Also, I don't like Fangwen." The laughter of the crowd rose and fell. "Then who do you like?" The class beauty in our class. People were making a ruckus and pushing Sensiyu towards Jiangdu. The female companion beside me felt a bit embarrassed and coughed twice. The colored lights were flashing, and then everyone noticed me. I walked up to everyone generously. "It's so lively, you can continue." Jiangdu instinctively protected Sensiyu. "Fangwen, what kind of trick are you going to play this time?" "A trick? I wished I could just stab these two people to death directly. But now nothing has happened yet. If I said that I was terribly harmed by these two people in my previous life, who would believe me?" I laughed. "Jiangdu, why didn't you say you hated me earlier? You're such a coward." I simply clapped my hands. "Well, if you don't welcome me, then I'll leave." Everyone didn't react. I had already pushed the door and gone out. Jiangdu followed closely behind. "Fangwen, listen to me." "Ah." Sensiyu fainted. There was an exclamation from my classmates behind. Jiangdu quickly left me behind. "Fangwen, what I said just now was just out of anger. I'll explain it to you later." Before he could finish speaking, he couldn't wait to rush to Sensiyu's side. I watched coldly and then turned around and left firmly. "There won't be another chance to explain. In 3 days, I will go to the United States. From now on, I will no longer think of you, and you don't think of me either." 7. The next day, I tidied up my room. I threw away what should be thrown away. My mother-in-law came over and indirectly asked me which university I was applying for. Of course, I wouldn't tell her that I was going to study abroad. I casually mentioned the name of Shanghai University to muddle through. While praising that Shanghai University was good, my mother-in-law rolled her eyes and brought up Jiangdu's marriage with me again. "You can get engaged first. It won't delay you and Adu from going to university." Before I could say the words of refusal, my mother-in-law changed the subject and comforted me. "I've already asked Adu. He and that Sensiyu are just ordinary classmates. You just like to think too much." She still wouldn't give up. I distanced myself from my mother-in-law. "Auntie, I really have no intention of Jiangdu." My mother-in-law still didn't believe me and quickly promised, "Good child, I will definitely make sure that Adu breaks up with that female classmate completely." These words happened to be heard by Jiangdu. He didn't figure out the situation and walked up to me in a few steps. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was full of disappointment and disgust. "Missy, do you have to make everyone revolve around you? Sensiyu is in poor health and her family condition is not good. I took a little more care of her. You just have to make it known all over the world and even tell my mother about it." As if venting his anger, he tugged at the crystal necklace in his hand. The crystal beads fell one after another. They rolled around and disappeared in all directions. "I originally wanted to give this to you as an apology, but now it seems there's no need. I'll just tell you clearly. There's nothing between me and Sensiyu. I won't distance myself from her because of you either." After venting his anger on me, Jiangdu kicked open the trash bin at the door that I used to throw away waste. The trash bin fell to the ground as he kicked it, and all sorts of things inside, such as dolls and small ornaments, rolled out one by one. Jiangdu's eyes suddenly turned red. "These were all given to you by me." "Yeah, I don't like them anymore, so I threw them away." As I said that, I kicked away the crystal beads that rolled to my feet. They were such annoying things. "I will board the plane to the United States in 2 days. The distance from Weicheng to Shanghai is not short. I have to go to Shanghai in advance. My passport was already done when I went abroad for a trip before. I don't have many things either. The valuable jewelry, property certificates, etc., are all stored in the bank safe." Coincidentally, Jiangdu's parents went to other cities to do business. So I won't say goodbye to them in person. They did take care of me for many years, but it was just for those inheritances. My uncle sent some money, but my mother-in-law of the Jiang family secretly kept it for herself. It was enough for my food, drinks, and daily expenses over the years. When I went out carrying a small suitcase, I met Jiangdu and Sensiyu in the living room downstairs. The two of them seemed to have just come back from outside. The small suitcase in my hand caught Jiangdu's attention. He asked, "Where are you going? Are you going to complain to my mother again?" "I'm not interested in that." I motioned for the two of them not to block my way. "I'm going to play at a classmate's house. Auntie and the others know about it." I wasn't lying. I had indeed told my mother-in-law of the Jiang family that I would stay and play at a classmate's house for 2 days. Jiangdu was still in a bad mood and said indifferently, "Come back by yourself then. I won't come to pick you up." It didn't matter to me. Sensiyu, who had been ignored, suddenly came over and said in a pitiful tone, "Classmate Fang Wen, I was just kicked out of my home and have nowhere to go. Jiangdu was kind enough to take me in. I heard from Aunt Jiang that you had an unpleasant experience with Jiangdu because of me. I'm so sorry." "You don't need to say sorry to her." Jiangdu held Sensiyu's wrist. "If she hadn't been so talkative, my mother wouldn't have bothered you." They really were a loving couple. I thought it was very boring and just walked forward on my own. Behind me, Sensiyu's weak and pitiful voice continued, "Jiangdu, don't you want to go and coax classmate Fang? Don't mind her. She has nowhere else to go. Sooner or later, she'll come back." Jiangdu said it with certainty. There was a hint of coldness and disdain in his tone. I paused for a moment, and then quickly continued walking forward. It turned out that their family thought I had nowhere else to go, so they bullied me like that. It didn't matter. "If we meet again, I'll also make you taste what it's like to have nowhere to go." 9. On the first day Fang Wen left, Jiangdu didn't feel anything unusual. On the second day, he asked the servant at home irritably, "Has the young lady still not come back?" The servant shook his head. The young man's handsome eyebrows furrowed deeply. "She really has the temper of a young lady. If she likes staying outside, then she can just never come back." After saying these harsh words viciously, he asked the servant again, "Did the young lady say which classmate's house she was going to?" The servant still shook his head. Jiangdu felt even more annoyed. It was as if there was a stone pressing on his heart. It made him unable to breathe easily. When he passed by Fang Wen's room, something seemed to be flashing beside the broad-leaved potted plant by the door. He thought of something. He bent down and picked it up. It was a lonely crystal bead. Jiangdu was a bit stunned. Then he squatted down and, as if possessed, wanted to look for other beads. A trace of regret welled up in his heart. Why did he break the necklace? This was clearly a graduation gift he had wanted to give to Fang Wen. Shiny accessories were Fang Wen's favorite. He had always known that Fang Wen had a bad temper, but she had restrained herself a lot after her parents passed away. He also knew that. Why did he have to make her unhappy? He thought that when Fang Wen came back, he would honestly apologize to her. However, he waited for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but still didn't see Fang Wen come home. The unease in his heart reached its peak. He started calling Fang Wen's close classmates. The answers he got were all that they hadn't seen Fang Wen. He didn't believe it. He went to look for her from one place to another. Still, there was no trace of Fang Wen, until he opened the door of Fang Wen's bedroom. In the room that was originally decorated warmly, those dolls he had given were gone. Fang Wen's clothes and shoes were all gone too. The room became much emptier all of a sudden. Jiangdu searched the room eagerly, trying to find the traces that Fang Wen had once lived here. But all he found was a piece of letter paper pressed on the table by a book. "I've left, Uncle and Auntie. Don't worry about me." There were only 9 words, and not even a single punctuation mark belonged to Jiangdu. 10. After the plane landed, I didn't immediately call according to the contact information my uncle had given me. Instead, I entrusted a detective to find out about my uncle's family situation. It didn't need to be very in-depth. Just a simple understanding of whether the family was harmonious, etc. I thought that no family that was already in chaos would be willing to accept a strange relative. Fortunately, the news I got was that my uncle had a rather large farm in a certain state. My uncle had a good reputation locally. The family members were simple, and they got along harmoniously. I also made the worst plan. If my uncle wasn't reliable, I could also study in the United States on my own. It wasn't a big deal. After finishing the investigation and buying gifts for everyone, I contacted my uncle. When he learned that I had already arrived, he came to pick me up immediately. 3 days later, I finally arrived at my uncle's farm. My uncle was more than 10 years older than my mother. Because of his early gold mining experience and exposure to the sun and wind, he looked even older. he wasn't good at expressing himself. Especially when facing me, he just sighed, "You really look like your mother." Then he gave me a card and told me to spend as I liked. He took me to ride the horses on the farm and allowed me to bully the big dog he raised. The big dog. Who did I offend? My aunt was a slightly plump white woman. She could make delicious desserts. Let me say quietly that the desserts were delicious, but they were really cloying if you ate too much. But she was so enthusiastic, she made all kinds of pastries for me. My uncle's son was already married, and his wife was a Chinese American. Thanks to this elder brother and sister-in-law, I could still eat some Chinese food. My uncle's daughter was only 1 year older than me. When my elder sister saw my decent and proper dress, she shook her head exaggeratedly. "God, don't let those ugly clothes insult your perfect figure." Okay, then she took me to go on a crazy shopping spree in the city. With her around, I quickly integrated into the local young people. After the summer vacation, it was time to go to university. With my uncle's connections, I directly went to the university my elder sister attended. I chose the finance major. There was no other reason. My previous life experience combined with my current property and capital were enough for me to make a career. 11. The life in the United States was warmer than I had imagined. During the holidays, I played crazily on the farm and helped with some miscellaneous work. At school, I attended classes and did homework together with classmates from all over the world. In my sophomore year, after conducting sufficient research, I decided to start with some import and export trade business to gain experience. I had a talk with my uncle. He didn't deny my decision. Instead, he asked me if I had enough money and whether I wanted him to introduce some bosses to me. It would be better to have someone to guide me, as I would avoid many detours, but for a novice like me, it wasn't a big deal to take some detours. I was still young, with enough time and money, and I could afford to make mistakes, so I, together with 3 other classmates in my class, invested capital to start a small company. We exported American clothing and food to neighboring countries. A year later, in my junior year, the company made a small profit. However, my classmates had different thoughts. Some wanted to start their own businesses after making money, and some thought the company's profit was unstable and ran away. Just like that, the company was dissolved. The experience of running the company accumulated a lot of experience for me. If I were the source factory for the imported and exported products, I would earn more. I made plans and investigations again, preparing to start another company before graduation. In my spare time, with the money I earned, I bought a car for my uncle. I also bought an apartment near the school for myself and lived with my elder sister. In the apartment, I adopted a lot of stray cats, both the disabled and the healthy ones. I took them all in. When the sunlight shone on the balcony, these fluffy creatures would curl up into a ball. They would nestle at my feet and sleep. I stroked one and played with another, and I suddenly thought of my previous life. I liked cats very much. After much coaxing, I finally got Jiangdu to buy a small Siamese cat. Just after bringing it back, Jiangdu's parents disliked it very much. They said that the cat would affect a pregnant woman. "You can't get pregnant anyway, and you still keep this thing. It's so unlucky." The little Siamese cat didn't know what it had done wrong. It curled up in my arms, looking wronged. I had to entrust it to a classmate who also loved cats. I gave money and things and visited it regularly. As I thought about this, I picked up a long-haired big orange cat. It seemed that I hadn't thought of my previous life and the Jiang family for a long time. After all, I was living a very happy life now. I didn't need to recall those unpleasant things. 12. In the second semester of my junior year, my new company was established. It was engaged in the dairy products business. From raising dairy cows to processing dairy products, I would gradually improve the industrial chain step by step. Finally, in the year I graduated, the production chain was fully improved. In this way, I could greatly reduce the cost. Whether it was the business in the United States or the export business, I had the confidence to negotiate prices with the other party. After everything was stable, I proposed to go back to China and take a look. My uncle naturally didn't stop me. My elder sister accompanied me back to China. As soon as we landed, my blonde and blue-eyed partner, Anderson, came up to us with a bunch of roses. He was a very standard handsome white man. He could also speak Chinese very well. "Feng Wen, are you surprised?" I was speechless. "Didn't you say you were going to negotiate about the land? If you followed me here, who will deal with that?" His green eyes flashed. "In your heart, I'm not as important as the company at all, am I? Of course, don't act pitiful." My elder sister covered her mouth and laughed beside me. "This guy is as handsome as your bodyguard." Then she secretly gave Anderson a thumbs up. "Come on." Encouraged, Anderson ran over confidently to pull my suitcase for me. But before he could touch the suitcase, another tall figure stood beside me. He casually pulled up the handle of the suitcase, and he also held an umbrella for us in a gentlemanly manner. The muscular forearm in front of me was very firm. I could vaguely see the outline of the blue veins under the wheat-colored skin. The special car has been arranged, boss. Chen Cheng's voice was rather cold, but his tone was quite gentle. I looked up, and the man's black hair and black eyes came into view. There was no expression on his face. He just stood in front of Anderson, as if he didn't notice him at all. Childish, I thought to myself and got into the car. 13. There were great changes in China. I first went to pay my respects at my parents' graves. When I arrived, in front of my parents' tombstone, a bunch of withered white chrysanthemums was rustling in the wind. Presumably, some of my parents' friends when they were alive had been here. I moved the chrysanthemums away and placed my own bouquet of flowers. I told my parents about my life abroad. I told them about how my uncle took care of me, my aunt's good cooking skills, only for desserts, the unreliable deeds of my elder brother and sister-in-law in taking care of the newborn. When it came to myself, I said that everything was going well. I had relatives I could act coquettishly with and rely on. I graduated as an excellent graduate, and I met many like-minded friends in my business. Don't worry, I'm taking good care of myself. It started to rain, the rain slid into my mouth, and it tasted salty. After our group finished paying our respects, we walked out of the cemetery. Anderson held an umbrella for my elder sister. Chen Cheng walked side by side with me. Just then, we happened to brush past a man and a woman. The man was holding a bunch of white chrysanthemums. The woman was running behind with an umbrella, and the words she said were a bit harsh. Even if you come here every day, you won't meet Feng Wen. I'm still pregnant. Why can't you consider my feelings? It was a familiar yet strange female voice. I instinctively turned my head to look. Who else could this man and woman be but Jiangdu and Sensiyu, my elder sister, Anderson? And the others all looked at me when they heard them mention my name. I shook my head, indicating that we should ignore them. Sensiyu kept talking. Jiangdu suddenly stopped, turned around, and snatched the umbrella from her, throwing it away. Can you just let me be quiet? You're really annoying. Sensiyu let out a scream and almost fell down. Seeing that the two of them were about to have a big quarrel in front of my parents' tombstone, I quickly asked the cemetery management to deal with it. As for why I didn't show myself directly in front of Jiangdu, it was because I didn't come back to China for him. I was interested in the current real estate. I came back to talk about business, so I didn't want to get involved with those unpleasant things. 14. It was very unfortunate. When I went to see the old house, I met an elder. He was an old acquaintance of my parents and the Jiang family. He quickly called and told my mother-in-law of the Jiang family that I had returned to China. My mother-in-law of the Jiang family was very excited and asked me to wait for her where I was. You child. Why didn't you tell Auntie when you came back? Auntie was so worried about you. Wait for me to come and pick you up. No, Auntie, I still have something to do. I took the initiative to hang up the phone. I returned the mobile phone to that elder. When the mother and son of the Jiang family rushed over, our group had already taken a car to a hotel in the city. We were going to attend a banquet in the evening. We would have contact with several developers in Weiqing. We would talk about the cooperation matters. The banquet was quite grand. Our group was used to drinking and socializing in the United States, so we were also very comfortable here. During the banquet, I had a pleasant conversation with several bosses. Half of this was due to the fact that I really had my own views on doing business. The other half was because everyone had a slight acquaintance with my parents. I had both connections and economic strength. The business negotiation went smoothly. In the middle of the banquet, there was some commotion at the entrance of the hall. Mr. Zhang, the host, was unhappy and asked what had happened. Boss Jiang doesn't have an invitation but insists on breaking in. Mr. Zhang looked at me. He naturally knew that I had once been adopted by the Jiang family. He smiled and said, the subordinates are just negligent. They forgot to give Boss Jiang an invitation. Why don't you invite him in? I showed a calm reaction on the surface, but in my heart, I secretly found it funny. What forgot to give the invitation? They just looked down on the Jiang family's wealth. Without my financial support, the Jiang family's small company could hardly continue. Moreover, due to various policy changes, the company was almost on the verge of bankruptcy. In such a situation, who would still be willing to pay attention to the Jiang family? I didn't stop Mr. Zhang from letting him in. After all, outsiders didn't know the grudges between me and the Jiang family. If it spread that I was ungrateful, that wouldn't be very good. On the surface, I still maintained my dignity. 15. Jiangdu's gaze locked onto me in an instant. He was wearing a semi-old high-end custom-made suit. Because of the previous pushing and shoving, it had become a bit wrinkled. He didn't care to tidy it up and strode towards me. Wenwen, you're finally back. the eagerness in his eyes was like a lit lamp. It made his dull eyes shine brightly. I didn't move. Just 1 second before Jiangdu came close, 3 people stood in front of me. My elder sister frowned. Who are you? Anderson put his hands on his hips. Another one. Chen Qing silently rolled up his sleeves and took off the watch on his wrist. We are legitimate business people. When, Jiangdu's eyes suddenly turned red. Why? I don't intend to reminisce with him. Long time no see. I still have something to do. Make yourself at home. Behind Jiangdu, his mother followed closely. Taking advantage of her age, she squeezed over with a shameless face. When, you said, why did you just run away without a word back then? Where have you been all these years? She grabbed my hand and started wiping away tears. I broke free from her little by little. Auntie, you received all the letters my uncle sent back. Why didn't you tell me? Besides, I left a note when I left. Everyone present was very shrewd. After I said these 2 sentences, everyone probably knew what had happened. It was nothing more than that Zhang's mother had withheld my uncle's letters and tried to prevent me from looking for my relatives. She didn't do such a thing because she liked me too much. It was because she liked the property under my name too much. I don't need to make it clear, it's enough that everyone knows. Zhang's mother immediately stopped crying. She forced a smile and said, Wen, don't be angry. How could I know if it was a hoax or not? By the way, Jiangdu looked for you for a long time after you left. You two should have a good chat and catch up. As she said that, she forcefully pulled Jiangdu beside me. Jiangdu didn't say anything, just stared at me with red eyes. His gaze made me very uncomfortable. I frowned. And Chen Qing came over and told Jiangdu to keep some distance from me. The boss doesn't like others getting too close. Anderson stood on the other side and blocked him. Hey, even I, who am so handsome, couldn't catch her. You'd better give up quickly. Jiangdu didn't look at these 2 people and stared at me, asking, why did you leave? Do you know how long I've been looking for you? I shook my head. I don't know, and I don't want to know. 16. Jiangdu choked. He took out a crystal necklace from his pocket. I fixed this. The day I went to find you was to make up with you. Wen, I'll never be muddle-headed again in the future. He spoke so sincerely, and the light in his eyes flickered. Anderson glanced at the crystal necklace and laughed. I mean, can such a worthless thing be given as a gift? Jiangdu looked at me deeply. I'll get you anything you want. Please, don't ignore me. I've never cared about the value of a gift, in the past. The cloth dolls that Jiangdu casually gave me would make me happy for a long time. I was happy because of the person I liked. Now, not only do I not like Jiangdu, but I'm even too lazy to waste my feelings of disgust on him. He's too weak, putting aside the emotions that blinded me in my previous life. He is not worth being my opponent at all. I still prefer the way you were unruly. I smiled. The way you thought you could control me was quite interesting. Wen, those were just angry words. He hurried to explain. I thought, oh, it doesn't matter. I took a glass of champagne from the waiter and said indifferently, does your wife know that you came to see me? Don't delay my business negotiations. Okay. Jiangdu's lips twitched, as if he had been greatly shocked. In my previous life, if I wanted to say one more word to him, he would say, don't delay his work. His work was to have sex with Sensiu every night and have children. The whole family was very happy. Seeing that I was about to leave, Jiangdu panicked. Don't go, can we start over? This time, before I could speak, my elder sister splashed a glass of wine in his face. Have you no shame? You have a wife but still dare to provoke my sister. This time, all the color drained from Jiangdu's face. I didn't mean to hide the fact that I'm married. Wen, I just want to win you back. Don't be angry. Sensiu and I was an accident. She drugged me, and that's why I made a mistake, all these years. I've been as pure as jade for you. Wait a minute, don't insult the words as pure as jade. Okay, what do I have to be angry about? In the end, Jiangdu and his mother were invited out by Mr. Zhang. After the banquet ended, Jiangdu was still waiting to see me. Unexpectedly, Sensiu came over with a big belly and started punching and kicking him. I'm carrying the seed of your Jiang family, and you still can't forget another woman. Are you even human? Women during pregnancy are naturally irritable. Instead of coaxing her, Jiangdu thought her shouting was too annoying. He told her to get out and go home. In the end, the 2 of them actually fought. Then, Zhang's mother pushed Sensiu down. Crimson liquid trickled down her leg. I withdrew my gaze and got into the car. Jiangdu directly left his wife, who needed to be sent to the hospital, and chased after my car. He kept shouting my name. He's really infatuated. My elder sister said with a look of disgust, he's a total scumbag. I corrected her. He's not infatuated with me. He wants to use our past relationship to move me and make me help the Jiang family. A person like him only loves himself. 17. the cooperation negotiation was quite successful. I will invest together with Mr. Zhang and others to undertake the largest new emerging shopping mall in Weiqing. Due to the preliminary preparation work, I still need to stay in the country for a while. Anderson went back to our home country first. Before he left, he repeatedly told me, "There's an old saying in Huagua, a good horse doesn't turn back to eat the grass. Don't make up with that guy. Also, the bodyguard Chen Qing won't do either. His monthly salary can't even afford your watch, with such big muscles. He looks like he's good at fighting." Chen Qing walked over silently. "Boss, I also have a martial arts hall. And the monthly profit." I gave the two of them a glare. "I can buy things myself. Currently, I just want to make money. If you delay my making money, I'll fire both of you." Anderson glared at Chen Qing and angrily boarded the plane. Chen Qing silently pulled his sleeves down a bit. It seemed that he wanted to cover his muscles, but with his broad shoulders and narrow waist, he could hide his arms, but not his solid pectoral muscles. "So childish." Jiangdu came to look for me several times. Later, he was too preoccupied with his own problems and gave up. After Tsinsiyu had a miscarriage, her relatives from her hometown swarmed over. They came to Weiqing and demanded an explanation from Jiangdu. The Jiang family's company's profits had already been dismal. With the interference of Tsinsiyu's relatives, it directly declared bankruptcy. They also found a very good lawyer to help Tsinsiyu fight the divorce lawsuit against Jiangdu. Tsinsiyu got most of the remaining property of the Jiang family. Zhang's father hanged himself at the company's old site due to the bankruptcy. Zhang's mother went crazy all day long because of the shock. She talked to the air every day and scolded the non-existent daughter-in-law on her own. "If you don't take the medicine, how can you give birth to a son for our family? If you don't kneel to the Bodhisattva, how can you give birth to a son for Adu?" Later, Zhang's mother went to the street and threw a tantrum. She was hit by a passing vehicle, and she ended up paralyzed in bed. Jiangdu begged Tsinsiyu for some money to treat his mother. Most of Tsinsiyu's money had gone into her relatives' pockets, and she simply couldn't take it out. Moreover, Tsinsiyu held a grudge against the Jiang family and wouldn't help even if she had the money. The two of them started arguing again. This time, Jiangdu attributed all his misfortunes to Tsinsiyu. During the fight, he took out a knife. It directly led to Tsinsiyu's death. Jiangdu was quickly arrested. And I, very kindly, went to the hospital to visit Zhang's mother. I paid her medical bills, by the way. Everyone praised me for being affectionate, but they didn't know that I hired the worst nurse for her. She soon had bedsores all over her body. She stank all over. I stood beside her and smiled at her. "Auntie, you have the memories of your previous life, right? When you were torturing me, did you ever think that one day you would fall into my hands? You clearly knew that Jiangdu had someone else outside, but you still blamed me for not being able to have children. When I was taking medicine and being punished to kneel, you were enjoying the family happiness with Tsinsiyu's child. You should also taste my pain." Zhang's mother opened her eyes angrily and waved her hands. But she couldn't even touch my sleeve. She could only open her mouth and let the saliva flow out. Her eyes were full of unwillingness. "I won't let her die. Just let her live on in this pitiful state." Before Jiangdu was executed, he requested to see me. I agreed. Facing me, he cried and repented. He said that many memories that didn't belong to him emerged in his mind. He saw that his indifference to me in his previous life had caused me to live a lonely and miserable life. "Can you forgive me? I love you." The reason I couldn't face my own heart is because I wanted to get rid of my parents' control. I've always listened to them, but when they told me to love you, I lost my mind and wanted to do the opposite. "How childish. I've lost everything now." He sobbed. I shook my head. He actually smiled. "It's okay. It's okay if you hate me. I'm so miserable in this life. Let it be my retribution." This time, I couldn't help but laugh. Retribution? How could there be such a coincidental retribution? In the reflection of the glass window, my somewhat excited eyebrows and eyes were shown. "Do you think that the downfall of your company was all due to the environment? Do you think it was just a coincidence that Tsinsiyu could find the location of the banquet?" Jiangdu's mother was still joking. "Wenwen, do you like our Jiangdu? Shuxin, could those relatives from the village really find a top-notch lawyer team for her?" Jiangdu's face turned pale little by little, until there was not a trace of blood left. However, his eyes were bloodshot. "You hate me this much. Why shouldn't I hate? In my previous life, I didn't do anything outrageous, but I ended up living a life that was neither human nor ghost. It was because the Jiang family coveted my property. They ruined my whole life. In this life, I've just done a little bit of manipulation. I've been very merciful already." Those choices were also the choices made by the Jiang family themselves. I stood up and the last words I left for Jiangdu were, "I'll bring the news of your execution to your mother." I walked out of the prison and got into the special car. The black car drove through the rain curtain. The newly divided commercial area already had the embryonic form of tall buildings. My future is coming. Story 2. In my previous life, I was swept away by a flood while trying to protect my sister. Years later, when we reunited, my parents forced me to take the blame for her. I died in prison, full of resentment, witnessing their wicked deeds. If I must die, as long as Chan Chan is safe, it's alright. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the flood. I pried my sister's fingers off one by one, smiling unrestrainedly. Hold your breath, sister is letting go now. The day after I learned that I was the tortured female protagonist, I was reborn. Sister, hold on to me, I don't want to die. In the midst of the storm, Lu Chanchan clung desperately to my hand, leaving trails of blood on my skin. My body shivered, and I suddenly realized I was no longer a spirit. I had truly been reborn on the day my twin sister Lu Chanchan disappeared. Before I could rejoice, the wooden stake beneath us started to crack. We were trapped here. The rain continued to pour, the stream flowed like a waterfall, and the stake was about to give way. In my past life, in an attempt to save Lu Chanchan, I pulled her onto the stake too, but the first thing she did was push me into the water. Sister, this stake is too thin, it can't hold both of us, so, could you be generous and let me have it? Before I could recover from my shock, I was swept away by the raging currents. When I awoke, I had hit my head in the torrent and spent my days dazed in a secluded mountain village, beaten and insulted. I lived a life that was neither human nor ghost-like. 15 years later, my biological parents took me back to provide for my education. I thought they were there to make up for the lost affection, but all their care was to make me take the fall for my sister, who had fled after causing an accident. Yen, it's not that mom and dad are biased. We've invested so much in Chan Chan over the years. She's still so young, has such a bright future, and she's about to marry the wealthiest man locally. We really can't afford to waste her youth in prison. Yes, Yen. Actually, spending a few years in jail isn't that long. We'll take care of everything for you. Once you go, you won't suffer any injustice. When you get out, Mom will definitely take you back home and take good care of you. They seemed earnest, like parents who truly cared for their daughter. But even with my compromised intellect, I knew that being in prison was no good. I struggled to escape, but was restrained by the bodyguards they brought and was forced into the police station to take the blame. The verdict came quickly. Lu Chanchan and I, being identical twins, looked extremely alike. With a little makeup, hardly anyone noticed the switch. I spent 5 years in prison, but the days were not as good as Lu's parents had promised. Being frail, I became a target for bullying in prison. Not only did I have to do the dirtiest and toughest jobs, but I also faced endless beatings. Every month when the supplies were distributed, even my sanitary pads were confiscated by the so-called big sister. Under their care, I mysteriously lost a kidney. Perhaps fearing retribution, the Lu family gave me a sum of money after I was released, but by then, I was drained of life and soon died full of resentment. After my death, my soul returned to the Lu family. Only then did I learn that all the suffering I endured in prison was orchestrated by Lu Chanchan. A fool like you deserves to be my sister and share the Lu family's wealth. Even on that stormy day years ago, when she insisted on going out in the rain to buy snacks, I went with her out of concern for her safety. That was when the floodwaters swept her away. Sister, help me please. The splashes from the heavy rain almost obscured the face of Lu Chanchan. As she struggled to call out, she desperately pulled me forward, crawling. The pain of my nails cutting into my skin snapped me back to reality. Seeing her still somewhat immature face, the corners of my lips curled up further. Are you thinking that this wooden stake is too thin to support both of our weights? Or are you thinking, once you get on it, you can push your sister down and save yourself? A flash of shock passed through Lu Chanchan's eyes, mixed with embarrassment at having her thoughts exposed. But after all, she was still a child, not yet mature. With doubts in her heart, she naturally voiced them out, murmuring, How did you know? Of course, I knew, because I was thinking the same thing. As if she guessed what I was about to do, the color drained from Lu Chanchan's face. Sister, don't do this. I am your sister, your full sister. TSK. Now she remembers we're full sisters. I made a silencing gesture with my hand, and then, under her horrified gaze, I pried her already weakened fingers off one by one. Hold your breath, sister is going to let go now. Lu Chanchan disappeared. From then on, the Lu family was left with only one child named Lu Yen. My parents posted notices and advertisements, but I was in my room, my eyes swollen from crying, not from sadness, but from overwhelming joy. Though tears streamed down uncontrollably, my smile was broader than an AK. Seeing me like this, My parents thought I was distressed by my sister's disappearance, their hearts softened, and they couldn't bring themselves to scold me. My dear, it's not your fault, your sister was too naughty. If she hadn't insisted on going out to buy snacks, you wouldn't have had to chase her out in the storm. It's good that you're safe. Let's just be a happy family of 3. Parents always favor the child by their side. It used to be Lu Chanqian, but from that moment on, the scales would forever tip in my favor. I couldn't help but wonder, what would Lu Chanqian think if she heard this? Certainly, she wouldn't feel good. As for why I'm so sure she'll come back, that's because, after I died, a voice in my head told me that my sister and I are the protagonists of 2 different novels. She holds the script of an uplifting female lead, who, despite early hardships, will have a smooth life after turning 20. So, at the latest, in 15 years, Lu Chanqian will definitely be found by the Lu family. As for me, I'm the main character in a family drama novel, holding a Dark Lotus persona but ultimately unable to resist the plot's direction, forced to endure physical and emotional torment, and finally using my death to punish the Lu family. But what good does that do? They continue to live well without a scratch. How could that be considered repentance? Fortunately, heaven has given me another chance to be reborn. This time, I won't be naive or foolishly manipulated. Those who hurt me will definitely pay the price they deserve. I laid out a piece of white paper and analyzed my situation in detail. In this life, my advantage lies in being physically healthy and mentally clear, and having been reborn once, I am familiar with the plot and can take some early advantages. My disadvantages lie in areas like perspectives and knowledge, things I never touched in my past life. So, the next step is naturally using these 15 years to fill in the gaps and ensure Lu Chanqian can never catch up to me again. However, this requires strong financial support. I searched through the information in my mind and vaguely recalled from a previous life. There was a peddler who came to our village to collect chicken feathers. He said that in the south there was a minimum guarantee, exchanging chicken feathers for sugar. One could even get a large villa. It was only later that I realized this was the time of economic reform and opening up. Many people stood at this turning point and made a fortune. Calculating the years, now is the perfect time to start a business. Thus, I subtly hinted this information to my parents, telling them that a classmate's parents were in the south, making at least 30,000 a month. These two, one driven by status and the other by greed, wouldn't have tried to keep Lu Chanqian marrying into a wealthy family by pushing me into prison. Using every effort at their disposal, after discussing all night, the next day they stopped searching for Lu Chanqian and took me south to trade in mobile phones. Let's set aside the matter with our daughter for now. If we miss this chance to make money, we might never get rich again. On the rumbling train, the whistle sounded long and lingering. Vast wheat fields hurried past before my eyes. I leaned on my palm, listening to their loud scheming, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. How tiring it is to make money oneself. It's much more satisfying to have your enemies work hard to support you. I just wonder what expression Lu Chanqian would have, after going through so much trouble to find her way home, only to discover that her family had long since disappeared. Since she was young, she had a tendency to get lost, but no matter how many times she wandered off, she would be returned home by kind-hearted people within at most half a month. But this time, I moved the home away. My dear sister, how will you come back now? In the warm sunshine, I lazily stretched. 15 years of good times. Let me, Lu Yanyan, enjoy them. Several years later, under my guidance, my parents successfully started their own business. They treated me as a lucky star, showering me with more affection and even transferred 10% of the company shares into my name. This was not because they loved me so much, but because they believed that I could bring them greater profits. By the age of 12, I had become a well-known little rich girl, attended to by personal staff wherever I went, but it still wasn't enough. I had to prepare for Lu Chanqian's return in 8 years. I quietly returned to Qin City and found Tan Jiahe being whipped by his uncle, shirtless. My money and your aunt's isn't blown by the wind. You loaf around here, eat for free, and don't even work hard. I let you read books. I let you not feed the pigs properly. Yet clearly, Tan Jiahe was only 10 years old. A man's son was munching on a steaming hot sweet corn, continuously egging his dad on to keep hitting, yet the young boy endured silently, his stubborn back straight and firm, showing no sign of weakness. This was the second time I saw him. The last time was at my grave. After being released from prison, knowing I was beyond help, I donated all the money from my parents to children who couldn't afford school. Tan Jiahe was the only one among these children who came to the cemetery to mourn me. At that time, he had succeeded in his endeavors, while I had been trapped at the tombstone for 10 years. It was the small daisies he brought that freed my spirit, allowing me to live another life. In the end, I spent 5,000 yuan to sever his ties with his aunt's family. When the money was handed over, the disbelief in the young boy's eyes turned into shimmering tears. Despite being 2 years younger, he was much shorter than me. I bent down and reached out my hand to him. "Would you like to come with me?" The boy didn't hesitate. "Yes, it's going to be tough. I'm not afraid." Such a firm gaze. It had been a long time since I had seen him. I took off my coat and draped it over his frail body, then led him to the car. Behind us, my greedy uncle's family was still counting money. They didn't know that the money was sequentially numbered, and that I had bought it at a high price from a thief. Soon, they would be imprisoned for a few years on charges of theft. I held Tan Jiahe's hand as we got into the car. The young boy was initially timid, worried about staining the seats with the dirt on his clothes. "You're coming home with me as a younger brother. If you aspire to rise above, don't ever feel inferior deep down," I told him. The boy's demeanor changed, and he confidently stepped into the car. Just as the car door closed, a sudden shout came from behind. "Sister, is that you?" It was your mom. I felt a headache coming on. Has her dramatic flair become so strong that we could encounter her like this? The butler, noticing the striking resemblance between Lu Chanqian and me, murmured, "Miss, is this?" However, before I could speak, Tan Jiahe's cold gaze swept over, and he spoke first. "Don't ask about things that aren't your concern." Well, he's quite the quick learner. Pleased, I smiled faintly. "The young master has spoken. You know what to do when we get back." After a moment's thought, the butler pressed the accelerator and sped off. "Miss, rest assured, I saw nothing." Behind us, Lu Chanqian had caught up, but just as she leaned on the car door, mud splashed by the wheels covered her. She lost her balance and face planted into the snow, trying to catch up. Her overly large shoes caused her to frequently fall. I couldn't help but laugh. Only when her ridiculous figure completely disappeared from view did I turn away. Tan Jiahe was staring at me intently. His hands were clenched into fists, and veins were visible under his pale skin. I asked him what was wrong. After a long silence, he finally said, "I won't let you regret buying me." In the warm breeze of the car, the young boy spoke deliberately. "Silly boy, of course, I won't regret it, because I knew that in just 5 years, you would become the most outstanding strategist in Qin City, and also the sharpest dagger I wield against the Lu family." 8 years flew by. On my 20th birthday, Lu Chanqian disguised as a waitress and sneaked into the venue. Amid the superficial small talk of the crowd, she suddenly knelt before my parents. My mother was startled and exclaimed, "Where did this lunatic come from?" Tears slowly streamed down Lu Chanqian's face. "Mom, Dad, don't you recognize me? I'm Chanqian." She clung desperately to my mother's skirt hem, her face filled with disbelief. In her previous life, she was a delicate young lady. This time, however, due to constant exposure to the elements, both her hands were rough and worn, like frostbite scars that had recurred without proper treatment. A look of disgust flashed across my mother's eyes. That look was identical to the one she had given me in a remote village in her previous life. Children are acutely aware of their parents' subtle emotions. Lu Chanqian stiffened as if stung, instinctively shrinking back. Whispers started among the crowd. Could it be that the Lu family has an illegitimate daughter? She does look a bit like Miss Lu. Are you blind? This waitress is dark and thin. How can you see any resemblance? Perhaps due to malnutrition. In this life, Lu Chanqian hadn't developed the curvaceous figure of her past. Her skin was deeply tanned, and she had a physique like a bean sprout. Watching quietly from the second floor, Tan Jiahe appeared just in time and whispered, "The surveillance has been taken care of. No one will know we let her in." I responded softly with a took his hand, and went downstairs. As we approached, my father's face was already stern. He had the servants take Lu Chanqian away first, probably because he recognized her. That was originally the best way to handle it, but Lu Chanqian was not appreciative. "I don't want this." Suddenly, she screamed in the crowd, pushing over a massive champagne tower. "I've suffered for over a decade outside, and now that I've finally come back, why won't you recognize me?" She wanted to cause a scene to force the Lu family to acknowledge her identity publicly, but she didn't realize that a rich person's gathering isn't just a party, it's also a venue for facilitating business deals. My parents wanted to close a major deal today and naturally wouldn't allow any disturbances. Moreover, she was trying to drag me into her mess. "Where's Lu Yanyan?" It was Lu Yanyan who pushed me into the water all those years ago. "Mom and Dad, you have to stand up for me," she accused me impatiently. But before she could finish, a sharp slap landed on her sunburnt, dry face. "You disgrace. Do you think you can tarnish my family's daughter?" I must say, the old man reacted quite swiftly. In today's setting, An insult to me was a direct affront to them. Insulting me was like slapping their own faces. So, without my needing to act, my father naturally intervened. Seeing the situation had escalated enough, I pushed through the crowd and helped the stunned Lu Qianqian to her feet. Bending down to dust her off, I whispered in her ear, "Do you think our parents would believe you, a crude girl from the countryside? How could you ever be more important than a daughter they meticulously raised?" I returned her words from another life back to her exactly as she had said them. Lu Qianqian shuddered all over, reminded of the vast difference between our current statuses. Like a deflated chick, she was dragged out of the venue by security called by Tan Jiahe. My parents looked displeased, and I consoled them a bit before queuing up a string quartet performance I had prepared earlier. The party quickly returned to its lively state. Everyone praised my kindness and propriety. A few aunts even affectionately asked if I was engaged yet. In these circles, gossip and scandals are merely conversation starters. Interests are the eternal rulers. I responded to each in kind, presenting myself as the perfect lady of the house. Afterward, I took my parents to a suite to rest. My mother patted the back of my hand and sighed softly. "Lucky for us to have Yen Yen, born on the same day, but your sister doesn't have half your wits." My father also muttered under his breath, "She's only just returned and already causing trouble. Had I known, it would have been better if she'd died out there." Facing a daughter who had suffered for years, their first reaction was to scold her. I glanced at Lu Qianqian hiding behind a folding screen. With such cold-blooded parents, even I felt chilled, let alone her, returning with full hopes. A stab in the heart, so cruel. Indeed, her figure wobbled, nearly unable to stand. Suppressing a smile, I pretended to console, "Don't say that. After all, Qianqian is part of our family." My father sighed in frustration. "Enough, let's take her home first and let Yen Yen teach her properly." They were about to embark on a project in Europe and had no time to deal with Lu Qianqian. I smiled. "Don't worry, leave her to me." The simple truth of karma. I had long wanted to teach her a lesson. 6. After Lu Qianqian was settled in the old house by her parents, they left for France with Tan Jiahe early the next morning. When I got up, I heard Lu Qianqian arguing with the nanny. "Wu Ma, what do you mean by throwing away the clothes?" Wu Ma sneered disdainfully. "Sorry, my miss is a clean freak. She doesn't wear clothes that others have dirted." Last night, after the party, the butler went to fetch Lu Qianqian's luggage, but with a grand gesture, she declared, "What status do I have now that I should settle for such low-end stuff?" In front of the butler, she burnt her old clothes to ashes. So, when she returned last night, she had no choice but to wear my pajamas. Unexpectedly, this morning when I woke up, I saw Wu Ma tossing the pajamas Lu Qianqian had changed out of into the trash. Lu Qianqian grabbed Wu Ma, demanding an explanation. "I only wore it once, how could it be dirty?" Wu Ma huffed, muttering softly, "Don't you know yourself how they got dirty?" 20 years ago, Wu Ma's husband ran off with a nightclub hostess, leaving behind his mentally challenged son, depending solely on her, and according to Tan Jiahe's investigation, before returning to the Lu family, Lu Qianqian had also worked in a nightclub. I had intentionally let slip this information to Wu Ma last night, and sure enough, it exploded today. The two quarreled incessantly. Lu Qianqian grabbed Wu Ma by the hair, swinging at her from both sides. Wu Ma was not to be outdone. Being a distant relative of her mother, she was used to throwing her weight around. Though she didn't dare to curse openly, she used underhanded tactics to leave several red marks on Lu Qianqian. I remembered in my past life, I had also briefly stayed with the Lu family. Back then, Wu Ma, under Lu Qianqian's instigation, humiliated me in every way. Only at that time I was naive, thinking even those who fed me stale buns were kind. I knocked on the glass door, the crisp sound bringing them back to their senses. Wu Ma looked at me, flustered. "Miss, you, dock a month's salary." Lu Qianqian looked triumphantly at Wu Ma. "Did you hear that? I am the young mistress of the Lu family, and you are nothing but a dog of the Lu family. Tired of living, are you?" Before she could finish, I continued, "You, no going out for a month." That stunned Lu Qianqian. Why? There was no why. In the Lu family, I had absolute authority. Wu Ma scoffed. A jungle fowl still thinks it's a phoenix." Seeing the once close servant and master turn against each other, I couldn't help but feel pleased. Holding my ticket for a vacation in Venice, I quietly turned away, leaving them to their renewed world war. A month should be enough for them to tear each other apart. 7. I really do acknowledge Wu Ma's fighting spirit. When I returned from my vacation, Lu Qianqian had been so agitated she broke out in acne all over her face. This only added insult to injury given her already modest looks. When my father returned and saw her swollen, pustule-covered face, He actually made her eat in the kitchen alone. The reason? She was dampening the whole family's appetite. I had to pinch my thigh blue to keep from laughing out loud. Lu Qianqian, carrying her bowl, shot me a venomous look as if to say, "You just wait." But the protagonist of a thrilling tale always finds her footing quickly, under our parents' arrangement. She enrolled in the same prestigious school I attended. During the opening ceremony, as I, representing the returning students, took the stage to speak, I found a flattened dead toad in my speech notes, tiny, but enough to drive me mad. Below the stage, Lu Qianqian smiled with ill intent. Only she knew that ever since I was little, I've been terrified of those slimy, slippery things, but those tricks are outdated. In my past life, after I was found, my parents placed me in her class. Lu Qianqian secretly put several dead toads into my backpack. The cold, stiff touch awakened the fears I had harbored since sleeping under the bridge, causing me to scream in class and further solidifying the rumor that the eldest daughter of the Lu family was a fool. During my brief time at school, I was isolated, slandered, and bullied, until my parents dragged me to take the blame for her. But not this time around. Years ago, I deliberately rented a dark, damp basement and forced myself to stay in the same room with them. The first time lasted only half an hour. When Tan Jiahe pulled me out, my lips were pale, but I asked him to lock me in a little longer. It took me 3 months to completely overcome my fear of amphibians. With a scornful smile, I calmly closed the folder containing my speech and took the microphone. As the representative of the senior students, I hope everyone understands, swearing cleanses your mouth. Revenge taken at the moment keeps one's standards high. As soon as I finished speaking, I rushed toward Lu Qianqian below the stage with lightning speed. Before she could react, I grabbed her jaw with one hand and stuffed the dead toad into her mouth. Lu Qianqian's eyes widened in shock as she covered her neck and retched. "What did you feed me?" I glanced at her. "Of course, it's what you put in the speech." Her tears burst out immediately. "What, you bitch? You fed me a dead toad," I said. "Oh." Deliberately dragging out the tone, "So you admit it was you who put it there?" Lu Qianqian choked, her eyes shifting guiltily. "When did I admit that? You are my own sister. How could you frame me? How convenient. I'm her sister when she needs me, but a bitch otherwise." I laughed derisively. "I didn't say what I fed you. If it wasn't you who put it there, how would you know it was a dead toad?" Hearing this, Lu Qianqian turned pale. Everyone in this elite school is sharp-witted. And they all understood the situation now. My gosh, this is the first time I've seen such swift karma. Lu Yanyan slinging that toad single-handedly is too cool. From now on, she is the only sister for me. Flunk school, take revenge on the spot. That's how you maintain high standards. The matter was quickly investigated. It turned out that while the teacher and I were discussing the order of the presentation, she secretly put a dead rat in there. In the video, she acted boldly without any hesitation. She didn't know that the school's grid infrared cameras only activate the red light when the external environment falls below a certain light level set by the camera. Lu Qianqian thought the light being off meant it was not recording. A bit smart but not much. The principal immediately reprimanded her severely, and I, for embodying the school's aggressive educational philosophy, was publicly praised. Of course, the incident also reached my parents' ears. Without a word, my father slapped me again. "I sent you to school to learn, not to cause trouble. Can't you be more like your sister and give us peace of mind?" My mother initially wanted to intercede, but seeing me frantically washing my hands since I got home, as if traumatized by the dead toad, she also started to scold her. "Thank goodness you were just scared. If something had happened to your sister, I would have dealt with you severely." At the last banquet, several industry leaders hinted at arranging a business marriage with their sons. At times like these, of course, my parents would prioritize my well-being. That evening, Lu Qianqian was punished to stand facing the wall and reflect on her mistakes. One evening, as I went out to use the restroom, she was still there, wiping tears against the wall. I couldn't even be bothered to look at her, yet I couldn't resist taunting her. "Why bother me when you're already in trouble?" Unable to hold back any longer, Lu Qianqian burst into tears. At the freshman orientation, I quickly made a name for myself. Lu Qianqian, on the other hand, due to her own malicious schemes, ended up like a rat crossing the street that everyone wanted to hit. After all, no one is a fool who would want to befriend someone deceitful, who had also metaphorically swallowed frogs. Consequently, Lu Qianqian was no longer called by her name. Everyone started calling her Lu Frog, Lu Bad Breath, Lu Blind to Surveillance. I found it both sad and funny. However, things developing in this way effectively ended her chances of being the favored heroine in the school as she had been in our previous life. She could no longer form cliques and manipulate groups to bully me as before, with no tricks left to play. Lu Chanshan was forced to lay low for a long time, but was that enough? She needed to experience both physical and mental torment, endure all the hardships I had faced in my past life, to repay her debts. In the evening, I asked Tan Jiahe to join me for a play, and on the way, I presented him with an admission letter. Do you want to be my classmate? 8 years ago, he and I had left Qin City together. Back then, I did not take him home but arranged for him to stay in an apartment under my name. Knowing how stifling traditional road education could be for a genius like him, I personally selected 10 industry experts to be his tutors. With talent and hard work, the current Tan Jiahe excelled in everything from financial mathematics to etiquette, horseback riding, tea ceremony, and golf. He didn't really need to go to school with me, but I needed to give Lu Chanshan a reason to continue her antics. He looked puzzled as he took it. Why suddenly think of sending me to a proper school? I kept a straight face and enticed him. I thought getting an MBA might be good for expanding your network, especially since you'll eventually run the Lu Corporation. He pondered for a moment. You want me to provoke Lu Chanshan, don't you? I was startled. How clever this kid was. Although all his skills were cultivated based on Lu Chanshan's preferences, I had never mentioned this to him before, yet unashamedly, I asked. How did you know? He gave a resigned smile. You're not one to undertake pointless tasks, yet, you're having me enroll in an MBA program I could easily pass, and the only variable in this scenario is Lu Chanshan. I guessed it's about her. Plus, you seem to really hate her. Being outsmarted by someone 2 years younger irked me. She has done things to me that are unforgivable. Don't try to persuade me to be more forgiving, or I might just throw you out of the car. I showed off my fist, as large as a sandbag. Tan Jiahe laughed. His warm palm enveloping my hand, gently pressing it down. I won't. Those 2 simple words were resolute and powerful. After I sort out the stocks for the Lu Corporation, I'll enroll. I leaned against his shoulder, swaying the glass in my hand. No rush. Lu Chanshan isn't going anywhere. He softly agreed, taking the glass from my hand. We still have 20 minutes to our destination. Get some more sleep. All right. I obediently closed my eyes. After some time, Tan Jiahe slightly tilted his head back, finishing the remaining liquor in one gulp where my lips had touched. He then lowered his head, lost in thought. He thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. With my eyes slightly narrowed, I watched as a blush crept up his ears and then slowly faded away. I smiled like a fox that had caught a rabbit. Indeed, when the teacher introduced the transfer student Tan Jiahe, Lu Chanshan's eyes lit up. She couldn't hide the admiration in her eyes. Her entire being was like the thawing spring waters of March, rippling with excitement. She sent love letters and chocolates in turns and even offered a hefty sum for Tan Jiahe to be her boyfriend for a few months. When he didn't agree, she followed him to the restaurant. What would you like to eat? My dad is really rich. I can treat you to anything you want. Seeing her monopolize the seat, Tan Jiahe furrowed his brows. This seat is taken. Where? I don't see anyone. Lu Chanshan looked around. She attempted to continue the conversation, but Tan Jiahe stood up and sweetly called her sister. Wow. I never realized he was so good at handling situations. I cleared my throat and raised an eyebrow at Lu Chanshan. Aren't you going to move? Or are you waiting for me to order you some spicy frog? A wave of sticky, nauseating memories surged, causing Lu Chanshan's scalp to tingle, and she reluctantly walked away. Over the next few days, Tan Jiahe kept calling me sister and followed me around. Lu Chanshan watched all this, grinding her teeth in frustration. In this life, all of Lu Chanshan's parents, friends, and loved ones were revolving around me. Given her temperament, it was no surprise she was going crazy. Several times, she wanted to lock me in the bathroom to vent her frustration, just like she had in a previous life. But I had been practicing Sanzhou for 15 years, and escaping from a bathroom stall was no challenge for me. The first time, when Lu Chanshan was exhausted from splashing water inside, I casually pushed open the stall door. Oh, getting some exercise. The second time, she got smarter and locked the adjacent door too, but I caught her hands and feet and locked her inside instead, leaving her drenched like a drowned rat. The third time was even more unlucky. The school guidance counselor was also on that floor. It's often said that a person is most vulnerable when using the restroom. The counselor, pants not even pulled up, caught Lu Chanshan by the hair and immediately called her father. But her father was too busy dealing with a hostile takeover of his stocks to care about her. Her mother couldn't be bothered either. Half a month ago, while Tan Jiahe and I were shopping, I saw her father with another woman entering a hotel and casually took a photo and sent it to her mother, who was now busy catching him in the act. Thus, it was the housekeeper who came to the school. I fanned the flames on the side. Every time there's a parent-teacher meeting, My parents fight over who gets to come, why don't yours want to show up for you? Lu Chanqian bit her lip hard. Didn't you hear what the housekeeper said? They're just busy. Oh, she actually believed that. I suddenly remembered a recording I had saved from years ago and played it from my phone. It was a perfect imitation of my mother's voice from back then. My dear, don't blame yourself. It was your sister being too naughty. If she hadn't insisted on going out to buy snacks, you wouldn't have had to chase after her in the storm. It's good that you're safe. Let's live well. Just the three of us. The recording ended. I smiled subtly. Did you hear that? We are the family of three. Your parents don't really care about you. Hearing this, the hope in Lu Chanqian's eyes dimmed bit by bit. In this life, she never received higher education, and her perspective and knowledge remained unexpanded. Such a person is easily swayed by emotions, overlooking the factual truth. As expected, she shouted, "I hate you," and stormed out of the guidance office, plunging into the rain without looking back. Without a second thought about the authenticity of the recording, well, hate if she must. If you don't hate me, where would my pleasure for revenge come from? Lu Chanqian hadn't been to school for several days. Little did I expect. Her absence was all part of a grand scheme against me. I synchronized her purchase records and was surprised to find she ordered an aphrodisiac hallucinogen. I thought she was aiming for revenge against me and was ready to turn her plan against her. To my surprise, her target was Tan Jiahe. That day, as I was busy acquiring shares from shareholders, Tan Jiahe suddenly called me. "A car has been following me, and I've started to feel feverish. I'll need to stop driving in 10 minutes. He hesitated, then added, "It seems like that kind of drug." I immediately knew who was following him. Without wasting a moment, I checked his driving route. "There's a garage under my name about 7 or 8 minutes drive from you. Go there, leave the car, and I'll have someone take you to the hospital." A restrained groan came through the phone before it hung up. I asked a friend at the garage to take Tan Jiahe to the hospital. When I arrived at Lu Chanqian's room, I found the remains of the hallucinogen under the dressing table. That packaging looked eerily familiar. In my past life, Lu Chanqian had used the same trick on me. Back then, my judgment was clouded, and she tricked me into drinking a beverage laced with the hallucinogen. When I woke up, I found myself in an unknown suburban area. Wu Xiaohai, the foolish son of Wu Ma, was on top of me, nearly deranged. That night, the storm raged, the dark night and the crimson intertwined into a distressing backdrop in my memories. Cries and calls for help violently pounded my swollen eardrums. I tried to call for help, but Wu Xiaohai, prone to violence, broke my fingers one by one. Desperate, I prayed for my parents to rescue me, but until dawn, my phone lay quietly in the nearby bushes. They never cared about my disappearance. After venting, Wu Xiaohai casually disposed of my body. Only an unknown elderly woman covered my exposed body with a mat. She called the police, but the Lu family, fearing a scandal would affect the stock market, insisted on keeping my death a secret. Then the truth was buried under the yellow soil, with no echoes around, holding the vial of the hallucinogen. My heart trembled fiercely. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I had waited over a decade for this moment. Just then, Wu Ma passed by. "Curious, miss, what are you looking for in the second young lady's room? Do you need help?" I paused, and a smile slowly spread across my lips. "No need, Wu Ma, your son lives near Luha." Right. An hour later, standing outside Wu Xiaohai's house, I received a call from Tan Jiahe. "I'm okay now. Coming to see you." I calmed him down. "Rest well. I'll come to see you soon." Suddenly, indescribable sounds spilled from the room, making Tan Jiahe instantly tense. "Where are you? Are you in danger?" He even started to get out of bed. I quickly told him to lie back down. "I'm fine, it's Lu Chanqian." He sighed with relief and finally settled down. "I'll wait for you at the hospital." After hanging up, I listened again at the corner of the room. This battle would take a while longer. I handed my camera to my subordinate. "Make sure to capture everything, especially the faces." "Lu Chanqian, this time, I won't let you get away." In the hospital, the smell of disinfectant was overwhelming. I peeled an apple leisurely. Tan Jiahe looked helpless. "Stop peeling, you're almost down to the core." I looked down and indeed, I had been a bit harsh with the knife. "Then don't eat it." He snatched the nearly core-only apple. "I don't mind." Yet he seemed a bit reluctant to look at me. "Fine." I put down the knife and picked up my bag. "Take care of your injury. I'm heading home for a bit." He looked puzzled. "Is there something else?" Of course, there was something else. There was a big drama unfolding tonight. I casually ordered a cake online. By the time I got home, Lu Chanqian hadn't returned yet. Today was my father's 50th birthday, but when my parents came home in the evening, they didn't look happy. Recently, the Liu family had been plagued with negative news. First, their jewelry company was reported for radiation levels exceeding standards. Then there were rumors of my father having an affair. In just 3 months, billions had evaporated from the market value. Everything was fine before. How come ever since my sister returned? During dinner, I feigned contemplation. I repeated to my parents what Liu Qianqian had said in a past life. Triggered by my comment, my mom began to rethink. Now that you mention it, the day Qianqian came back, she messed up the project we had been struggling to prepare. Since then, the performance of the Liu's business has been declining. Could it be true, as Yan Yan said, that she came back to jinx us? Although my father remained silent, there was anger between his brows. After a long silence, he finally called the housekeeper. Pack up, have Qianqian move to the house in the suburbs tomorrow. A loud crash was heard, something fell to the ground. I looked towards the sound and saw Liu Qianqian standing at the door. Rain drenched her bangs, breaking into disjointed lines. At her feet lay a shattered piece of cake. Truly the good daughter of my parents. Even in such a state, she was thinking about celebrating her father's birthday. Before she entered the house, she must have carefully protected the cake under her clothes, perhaps thinking that after her dad ate this piece of cake, he would treat her as kindly as before. But would her father appreciate it? I doubt it. Compared to his daughter, he loved money and status more. Mom, Dad, what are you talking about? Liu Qianqian trembled as she walked over, incredulous. I haven't done anything. How could I possibly jinx you? My father glanced at her with disdain. Look at you. You don't look at all like a proper lady. Whether it's your fault or not, moving there will spare me the sight and spare me the trouble. My mother wanted to plead for her, but a stern look from my father silenced her. Liu Qianqian, who rarely saw her parents, would now have even less chance to bond with them. Being moved to the suburbs, she fell to her knees, sobbing and begging her father not to send her away. Her expression was as helpless and pitiful as mine was before I was sent to prison in a past life. But would my parents take pity on her? After dinner, they had the housekeeper pack her luggage. My father's decision was undoubtedly the last straw. The last glimmer of hope in Liu Qianqian's eyes finally extinguished. She slowly raised her head, her voice filled with accusation. Dad, why do you treat me with such an attitude? Mom, why didn't you help plead for me? I'm Qianqian. Since I've come back looking like this, none of you even asked what happened to me. Instead, you just told me to move out. You used to say when I was a child that I was your most beloved child. Why have you changed? Why are you treating me like this? My father looked at her as if she were insane. All of this is your own doing. Ever since you returned, you've caused me so much trouble. If you were as trouble-free as your sister, would we have sent you away? Who made me what I am today? Qianqian screamed suddenly, grabbing a dinner knife from the table and pointing it towards our father and mother. I silently stepped back, making room for her battlefield. It was you. Yes, it was you. When I was swept away by the flood, why didn't you look for me? I waited for you in Qingqing for so long. Why didn't you come to find me? I became like this because of you. In fact, after our parents came to Guangshan, they had people look for her for a year, but I had bribed the private detective they hired through Tanjiahe. So, every time the result was, sorry, we haven't found her yet. Are you out of your mind? Father was enraged by her actions and stood up to hit her. But Qianqian was on the verge of collapse. Seeing father lashing out, she suddenly laughed maniacally, waving the knife. Father couldn't dodge in time and received a large gash on his abdomen. Next, she turned the knife towards our mother. She's gone mad. She has a mental illness. Someone come and take her away. Mother didn't even care about father lying on the ground, screaming and hiding behind Wu Ma. A couple are birds of the same forest, who fly separately when disaster strikes. Today, I truly saw that, but Wu Ma had never seen such a scene before. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. Qianqian continued to advance. Mother, terrified out of her wits, kept dodging around a pillar. The two of them circling the pillar was quite a sight to behold. I took out a napkin, wiped my mouth, and just then, my skirt was grabbed by father. Yan Yan, call an ambulance. He was clutching at straws, hoping I could save his life. But I didn't care. Again, I extended my index finger, making a shushing gesture. Just endure it. It will be over soon. Isn't that what you said when you sent me to jail? Father looked at me in disbelief, then his eyes widened, and he breathed his last. I continued to watch. Just as Qianqian was about to stab mother, the butler rushed in with people. Sorry miss, we were too late. No, you came too early. I sighed silently, but the outcome was somewhat satisfactory. I found myself in the hospital again, this time. Lying on the hospital bed was my dear father. The old man was tough, Despite the large wound inflicted by Chanqian, he didn't die. However, the doctors said that when he fell, he hit his head, causing a stroke. Although he was conscious, he would never be able to speak or get out of bed for the rest of his life. I wiped his face for the last time, and while bending down, I whispered in his ear. Are you curious about who leaked the news of your affair and the use of radioactive jewelry by the Liu family? His pupils dilated suddenly, staring at me with hatred. He must have understood, but with all his strength, he could only make incomprehensible noises. Just then, a nurse came in to give him an injection. I took one last look at him, a final blow to the heart. Thank you, Dad. I'll take over Liu's company. 5 years ago, I registered the company under the name of Tan Jiahe. He had the Liu family stocks targeted in secret. Now that the chairman has lost his capacity to act and the company is mired in scandals, it's the perfect opportunity to seize power. I'll be taking over in a week. My mother, well aware that I am the only one who can support her in old age, naturally didn't dare to object. Liu Chanqian, on the other hand, was arrested and jailed for intentional homicide. To my surprise, the person who died by her hand was not my father, but Wu Xiaohai. The police said that after the deed, she pretended to cook for Wu Xiaohai, and while he was off guard, she knocked him out with an ashtray. Unsatisfied, she struck him over 20 times in total, until Wu Xiaohai was a bloody, indistinct mess, motionless. Upon hearing this, I immediately had Tan Jiahe step in to hire Wu's mother to care for my paralyzed father at the hospital. Wu's mother, known for her bad temper, used to slap people around when she was tasked with taking care of me after my release from prison in my previous life when I lost a kidney. Now, with her son killed by Liu Chanqian's own hands, her feelings towards the murderer's father would certainly not be pleasant. It takes a villain to grind another villain. Once everything had settled down, I visited Liu Chanqian in prison. In just 1 month, she had become considerably haggard. Her lips were cracked, her hair dry and yellow, her dark circles larger than her eye bags. I was too busy taking over the company to attend to her. Presumably, Tan Jiahe had already made arrangements for her to be well taken care of inside. In our past life, it was the same, one inside, one outside, only this time, the one inside was her. I laid out the photos on the table. In them, she was naked, her face flushed, tightly entwined with Wu Xiaohai. Considering Wu Xiaohai's offensive actions, the judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. But how could that be enough? Your remaining years will be spent trying to erase yourself from the internet. But even upon release, there will always be people who remember what you look like. They will despise you in every corner of the world for me, and you will never escape it. As soon as the photos were brought out, Liu Chanqian understood what was happening. It was you who lured me to Wu Xiaohai. It was you who fed me hallucinogens. Liu Yanyan, why did you ruin me? Why indeed? Because you owe me a life. Just because I once tried to push you off a tree stump. I shook my head. Not just that, in our past life, you did many unforgivable things to me, but unfortunately, you don't remember them. Otherwise, I can't even imagine how joyful it would be to see her remorse. Liu Chanqian was stunned. Are you insane? You're treating your own sister like this over a non-existent past life. And even if I really did hurt you, that was in another life. What does it have to do with this one? I haven't caused you any real harm. Listen to her, always finding excuses for herself, but I won't justify myself, because I understand that my beautiful future isn't due to her mercy. It's because I've already cut off her potential for wrongdoing at the root. You're wrong. I waved my finger in front of her. Harm isn't defined by the perpetrator. Wandering in front of the monument for those 10 years, hate and grievances clung to me like a chronic illness, tormenting me into sleepless nights. Even though my body was gone, I remembered every injury clearly. How could I possibly give up on revenge just because of a light-hearted? It has nothing to do with this life. There is no generosity in a black lotus. Liu Chanqian glared at me fiercely, and after a moment, she suddenly stood up and began frantically pounding on the partition. Police. I want to see the police. It's Liu Yanyan. She framed me. It's Liu Yanyan. But who would believe the words of someone powerless and insignificant? The prison guard quickly approached, knocked her out, and dragged her away, separated by the display window. I waved at her for the last time. Enjoy your time in prison, my dear sister. While I was busy cleaning up the old parts of the company, my father gave me another big gift. Unable to endure the torment from Mrs. Wu, he intentionally fell from the bed, a blood clot dislodged, causing a cardiac thrombosis, and he passed away that night. At the funeral, I covered my mouth, laughing until tears streamed down my face, while the guests comforted me, urging me not to be sad. Honestly, it was a relief. As for my mother, she cried herself into unconsciousness. Those unaware would think she wasn't the one who abandoned her husband that day. People rushed her to the hospital. I thought she was overly grieving the loss of her support, but when the doctor came to examine her, it turned out she was pregnant. Everyone then urged her to mourn respectfully for the sake of the child. Mother dabbed her tears and gently touched her abdomen. Don't worry, this is surely a blessing from heaven, to leave a descendant for the Liu family. I won't fall easily. She even believed it was a boy. What? The company, of course. It will be left to the boy. Yin Yin is just managing it temporarily. Eventually, when she marries, it will have to be returned to the Liu family. She stated it as if it was the most natural thing, then turned to me. Isn't that right, Yin Yin? From the time Liu Qianqian and I were born, they had always expressed a desire for a son. All these years, I had secretly been putting birth control pills in my mother's milk. Who knew? Despite all precautions, it failed the last time, but it doesn't matter, in this lifetime. None of you can escape. I nodded without a word, finished the funeral, and gave Tan Jiahe a signal. That afternoon, a medical report about my mother was placed on my desk. I guessed right. She had developed acute renal failure, because in a previous life, as I was being taken away by the doctor for a kidney removal, I vaguely heard them gossiping. She's so cruel, not even sparing her own flesh and blood. I had suspected that my parents were looking for a kidney source, but had no proof until 2 years ago when my mother started showing early symptoms of kidney disease. It seems the heir of Liu Corporation was never meant to be. The next day, when I handed my mother an exaggerated medical report, she was completely stunned. How long can I live then? I sighed regretfully. The doctor said, with dialysis, maybe 10 years. She collapsed to the ground, murmuring, I'm still so young. How can it only be 10 years? But if you get a transplant, maybe it could be longer. Mother brightened up. Right, a transplant. Who could donate a kidney to me? Saying this, she turned her eager eyes towards me. Let's go get a matching test now. A matching test? You think you're worthy? Suppressing my disdain, I gently patted the back of her hand. Mom, I would of course be willing to donate a kidney for you, but without Dad, I still have to support the Liu family. Without a kidney, how can I ensure you live a life of luxury? What should I do? What should I do? I don't want to die, she asked anxiously, but Qianqian and I are identical twins. Instead of me going for the compatibility test, maybe, I haven't forgotten, Liu Qianqian still owes me a kidney. My mother immediately understood what I meant. I continued to persuade. I've seen the account books left by Dad. Before he passed, he was funding organ trades at the 4th prison and the City Heart Hospital. If you bring up Dad's name, how could the hospital refuse to operate on you? Right, you have the hospital director's phone number, don't you? Everyone wants to live. Hearing there was hope, my mother's face lit up with joy, but her expression fell again in no time. But what about your brother? Will he be okay if we go through with this surgery? There would definitely be consequences. Still, I put on a face full of concern and advised, at this point, how can you still not see clearly? You're not a Liu by blood. Faced with choosing between the heir of the Liu family and your own life, how can you even hesitate? No more needed to be said. My mother, racked with worry, took a long while before she finally made up her mind, touching her belly and whispering an apology. So-called familial love, that's all there is to it. I sneered, stood up, and pulled open the curtains to find it was already evening. Indeed, the sunset is endlessly beautiful. Look at this glow, how bright and beautiful. Shortly after, Tan Jiahe sent an anonymous email to various prosecutors' offices and media outlets. It not only exposed the organ trade between the hospital and the prison but also included a list of involved personnel, with a complete chain of evidence. It quickly drew attention from all sectors of society. The doctors, hearing the rumors, were just about to transplant the kidney into my mother, fearful of being exposed. They fled without caring for the still bleeding patient. By the time the police arrived, my mother was already on her last breath. She passed away before the ambulance could arrive. Of course, Liu Qianqian was not much better off, having had a kidney forcibly removed. She survived but went mad. Upon waking, she disregarded all restraint and pulled the needle into her artery. The nurses said that her last words were, I want to be reborn. It seems she overheard the doctor's gossip and figured out that my mother was the mastermind behind it all. In despair, she too wanted to defy fate like me. But no one will bring her daisies. Without good deeds, how can there be good outcomes? The news of her death arrived on my 21st birthday. I opened a bottle of red wine and drank 3 glasses. Thank you all, Dad, Mom, and Liu Qianqian. Your retribution is the best birthday gift I've ever received. Congratulations. You finally got what you wanted, said Tan Jiahe, lifting his glass to toast with me. For many years, he had been lurking in the shadows, handling matters I couldn't deal with directly. He did well. I am grateful to him. but for the minor sabotage needed to take down the Liu family, someone has to face the consequences. The police are already on their way. Sacrifice him, or sacrifice myself. The answer is obvious. In front of the large window, Tan Jiahe, clad in black, stood with a straight posture. Many years ago, he stood here as well, promising me, one day, I will give you everything you desire. Seemingly anticipating something, he looked towards the distant lights, his gaze filled with tragic solemnity. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. Ask, I replied, a request I could still grant. I've seen your records. Before me, you had considered other children. Why did you choose me in the end? After a moment of thought, I said. Because you were talented and had never been treated well from a young age. I knew that if I showed you kindness, you wouldn't easily betray me. After being reborn, I spent 3 years studying criminal psychology. Tan Jiahe was my first experimental subject. He looked down and gave a bitter smile. I knew it. You were using me right from the start. The police sirens were solemn, already sounding beneath the Liu mansion. Neither of us spoke, we just sat silently, waiting for the darkness to swallow the last light of the dusk. Just before the police entered, he suddenly asked me, Sister, who do you think will win? Before I could reply, a rugged man pushed the door open. Miss Liu Yanyan, we have some questions regarding your illegal involvement in the Liu's radiation jewelry and organ trafficking case, and we would like you to cooperate with the investigation. I looked up at Tan Jiahe. Ah, the wolf cub I raised has finally grown up. At the turn of summer and autumn, a cold autumn rain fell. After 15 years, I returned to Qin City, this time, not for revenge, but to pick someone up. 15 years ago, I spent a few days in a detention center, then was told the investigation was over and I could go home. Tan Jiahe took the blame for me. He spent 5 days intentionally exposing the loopholes he had left earlier, taking all the blame upon himself. After the sentence was effective, I visited him in prison, through the glass. I sneered, you've grown wings, deceiving even me. He actually smiled, you're allowed to deceive me, but I'm not allowed to deceive you. He was referring to when I admitted I had been using him when he asked why I chose him. Indeed, my approach to Tan Jiahe was not pure, but more importantly, evil begets evil, and good should also be repaid. Isn't that fair? Everything I gave him, from a piece of clothing to the entirety of the Liu estate, was a reciprocation for that bunch of daisies, honestly. I had also considered just using Tan Jiahe as a pawn. I left all the morally gray tasks to him so that I could later be free of blame, but over 2 lifetimes, with the people around me being either corrupt or rotten, it was he who let me see the last bit of goodness in this world. I didn't want to destroy him, so at the last moment, I hesitated. I planned to take the blame after my revenge and hand over the Liu estate to Tan Jiahe as my final gesture, but Tan Jiahe was too clever. He calculated all the loopholes just right, and I didn't even have a chance to overturn the case. I lost, thoroughly. I'm honored. My heart trembled. What? He continued. No matter why you chose me, I'm honored and have no regrets. I suddenly remembered the day I brought him home. Would you like to come with me? I would. It's going to be very hard. I'm not afraid. He kept his promise. Sooner or later, one day, I will give you everything you desire. I will give you everything you want. He said as tears dripped onto my legs. When I had a kidney removed years ago, I didn't shed a single tear. Tan Jiahe raised his hand and gently wiped the tears from my face on the glass, but it was all in vain. Don't cry. I can't hold you. It was the first time he admitted anything, yet it seemed like he admitted nothing. I couldn't hold back any longer. Why, when it was clearly me? He stopped me mid-sentence, tears surprisingly welling up in his eyes. Remember, everything I've done has nothing to do with you. After today, don't come again. He looked deeply into my eyes, then he turned around, and I didn't see him again for 15 years. My thoughts were pulled back, the gate opened, and a familiar figure emerged. I waved at him, under the black umbrella. Those amber eyes were still bright. I walked slowly towards him, and just 2 steps away, I slapped him across the face, but he took the opportunity to pull me into his embrace. Raindrops hit the umbrella, making a pattering sound. I couldn't hold back any longer and wept bitterly, leaning against his chest. 15 years had passed, and I couldn't resist the ravages of time. Fine lines had appeared at the corners of my eyes. Tan Jiahe had also become more mature and steady, but when we hugged each other, there was not a trace of strangeness. I missed you a lot, he said first, holding me with one hand and the umbrella with the other. Going to prison had apparently improved his way with words. I laughed, hugging him even tighter. Me too. I missed you more than you could imagine. A warm autumn breeze brushed against my neck. All things to me were no longer an absurd silence. We held hands and slowly walked towards the way home. The path ahead might still be full of hardships, but I knew that on this road, someone would always be with me. I was not hesitant, nor was I afraid.